No, that's what I'm,
Oh, as far as
I'll start with these.
They're just having a budget meeting. And they're
Has anyone
talking
heard
about
from
budget.
Jason?
And at the
I
last
thought
meeting,
that was
they got
pretty good.
all
Oh,
the way
They have not, to my knowledge.
So we don't know if he's coming or not.
You have 3 minutes at the beginning of that meeting. Or you have 3 minutes at the end.
You move that over here if you want to. Oh, that's true.
So,
We're going to call the meeting to order. It is 2 minutes after 4. Is that correct? Okay. We apparently have a quorum. So again, this is a special meeting, so I'm going to call it, obviously called it to order. So we're going to have civil reflections, pledge of allegiance with a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let me do roll call.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler-Challenger, yes. Mr. Benzie?
Yes.
Mr. Fewens-Bliss?
Here.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we have 2 absent?
Yep.
Okay. All right, number 3 on our agenda, which, by the way, do you all have agendas?
Well,
I don't.
it's just pretty
Are they
much,
on the podium?
it's only one item agenda.
It's always good to have. All right. Number 3, we're going to have the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything to change?
I move we approve the agenda as written.
I'll second it.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Fewens-Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Benzie?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler-Challenger, yes.
All right, number 4, we're on a disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there any? Steve, tell me. Okay. So now we're at public comments. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment for the current agenda?
Good afternoon. My name is Judy Gardy. I live on Park Lake Road. I'm here to encourage you to include the funding for the nature trail in the 2022 budget, but also would like to encourage you to include the architecture and engineering funds necessary for studying the expansion of the senior center. When that was turned in to the planning board, the recommendation, the projected cost for that architecture and engineering was $5,000. And the expansion of the senior center is in the 5-year long-range plan for the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Is there anyone else?
My name is Connie Zigo. I'm the owner of Park Lake Creamery, and I've come today again to voice my support for the funding to whatever level is prudent of the nature trail. I did want to say something additionally. This is perhaps somewhat idealistic on my part, but I do have a vision for this that I'd like to share, and that I would like to make this a really large community bath project where the funds that are allocated towards the trail could be used to, in some ways, support bath businesses. So, and also to accept donations in kind from people that can support it. In other words, if the trail needs wood chips, maybe there are residents of Bath that have wood chips. And if we need posts, perhaps somebody has posts. And we can use labor from Bath residents and school people, whatever, to create a real powerful Bath community project. In other words, instead of just putting money towards the trail and then everyone wakes up and there's a trail, that we could make it more of a community involvement project. And I don't exactly understand how funds like these are administered, but if there is a committee, I sure would like to be on it, and I sure would like to encourage as much Bath business participation in that as possible, so that we really see it as a Bath project.
Thank you.
Hi, Ray Kotke. I live on Park Lake Road, on Park Lake. And I just wanted to remind you, since we are speaking of the Park Lake, I like to think of it as Park Lake Nature Preserve and Park Lake Trail. However, the verbiage is not really important. But just to remind you all that, in my opinion, the goal to get this park to come to fruition would be to apply for the DNR Trust Fund grant. And in order to do that, we have to match 25% of whatever we want to get from the state. The maximum, I believe, is $300,000, so that would mean that we would have a minimum contribution of $75,000 or more. And that can be made up of in-kind contribution and labor. I don't believe engineering costs can be factored into that. But, you know, other, just like Connie said, donations, materials, labor, can all be used as that co-fund to help secure the grant. The more we contribute, the more points we get in regards to going up on the possibility of getting the grant awarded to us over other townships and the like. You know, we're not going to be the only ones going for it. So this especially is a good time with the recovery plan and everything going in. I think there's going to be some funds available that we should try to secure as much as we can. And I would like to graciously ask, without regret or remorse, I should say, that you're more than welcome to award more than what the CIP is asking for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Is there anybody else?
My name is Mary Schaefer, and I live on Park Lake Road also, on the lake. And I just wanted to say I'm very supportive for the nature trail also. And I also think Connie has a great idea of bringing business in. I just heard it today, and I think that's a fabulous idea. One other thing I'd like to bring up, and I don't know if anybody's interested, but I think in my mind it's a good idea. I have a tendency to think big wherever I live, and I would like all of you guys to at least think about dredging Park Lake. I think that when my husband and I moved here, we saw such a beautiful, beautiful place for us to live the last part of our lives and to give to our grandchildren, a beautiful place. I think that right at this moment, Clinton County has, from the American Rescue Plan, $15.5 million. You're never going to have that again. Also, we have, as Bath Township, $1.3 million. This is a jewel. It's a jewel for this area. We live here because it's so close to Michigan State, because there's so many good things are happening here. The nature trail. I just see so many good things happening, new houses going up. And I hope that you guys will, yes, we can penny pinch and we can worry about this and this and this, but I think right at this moment, if you can work with the Clinton County and do something with this lake, I can tell you, I'm born and raised in Lansing, and I've seen what happened to Lake Lansing after it got dredged. And there are so many old homes on this lake that if you dredge this lake, and it's happened, I grew up with my grandparents on Crystal Lake up at by Carson City. When those homes
gets so old, people come in, knock them down, and build beautiful homes. So I just want you to think about that. And I guess that's all I have to say. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone else?
Yes, my name is Gary Schaefer, and I also live on Park Lake. Part of the nature trail has potential to be tied into the Lansing River Trail, Michigan State. It's not just around our lake. If you go through Hawk Hollow and go down State Road, you can be on the river trail in a matter of miles. You can cut through Abbott Road. It not only would tie in to the river trail, Michigan State, but there's part of a major system that is going through the whole state of Michigan. So it would not just be for us. It would tie into several trails. So that's what I'd like to bring to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? I think that just about takes care of everybody that was here, other than John. Okay. All right, we're going to move on, and thank you ever so much for those comments. We have new business, and these are items for introduction, which there is none. Items for action, which is the 2022 budget. So, Karen, I think you're on.
Thank you. Although we left off at page, I think, 17, I would like to go back to page 11 and discuss what are the items there before we get started again. It was noted at the last meeting that the staff salaries line item on page 11 was lower than the one in the treasurer's department. Brenda, Clerk Challenger, and I have discussed that and would like to bring that in line with the other line item. And would like to add $5,727 to that, bringing the department total to $205,987.
Quick question. What you're looking at is to bring up, which is, I agree with, you're bringing up the salary for
The deputy
the
clerk.
deputy clerk in line with your deputy treasurer.
Correct.
And that's what your 5,000,
Yes.
how much was it?
$5,727.
Now, is that with or without the 3%?
It's with the 3%.
So how much would it be without the 3%?
I give you equal to what the deputy treasurer.
Oh, okay, so, well, no, I understand that. That's why I'm asking, is it with or without?
It's with,
So
because that's what the deputy treasurer's was brought to with the 3%.
right, in your budget, that's what you're looking for. So what I'm saying is, if you're gonna bring it up to line, what you're saying is, it's not up to line unless it has a 3%.
Correct.
Okay. That's too bad, okay.
Okay, moving back to page 17.
Well, is that accepted?
You want consensus on that?
Sure.
Yes. So I think you're gonna need to have a
Okay.
roll call, because you're talking money.
It doesn't need to be.
You're not voting on the
No,
budget, you're
we'll-
voting on the page.
No, we'll just do a voice vote like I did before. Are there additional questions?
Okay. No, as long as you're
Are there
thinking that
additional
this is not with money,
questions?
that's okay.
It's the same
Any
thing we
other-
were doing last week.
I understand that.
Okay. It's not the
Okay.
final vote on the budget, so you still have opportunities to.
Nope, I understand that.
Okay.
Okay.
Hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I,
Thank you. Okay, and I'm sorry, we ended at 17, but let's go back to 16 because I do have some modifications there that I can clarify for you. So it was brought up last time that we, I'm sorry, I'm having an issue here. Sorry about that. I believe trustee Phelan's Bliss, you were discussing, I can't remember if it was you or trustee Almarigi, but I would recommend moving, the $25,000 in line 932, it's 101, 265, 932, moving that money out to the senior center, because there are building improvements there in the senior center. And I don't think that this is the appropriate place for it. And then looking down at land improvements, I know that this was an item that, again, you or trustee Almarigi had asked about. The Wiswasser Park, parking lot issue, I think is one that needs to be looked at. Initially, I would have recommended moving that out to the Parks and Recreation Department budget, but I think what actually needs to happen is there needs to be an engineering study, both in the parking lot and across the street for the boat launch. And something I would like to discuss with the Park Lake Advisory Board, so I'm, at this time, willing to take that out completely, which would remove $40,000 from that line item. I don't think we're at all willing, or ready yet to move forward with a major overhaul of that area, without some engineering and without some thought going into it.
What department are you in?
I'm in building and grounds, and
Oh,
Ben,
that's-
and Ben having this budget kind of Parks and Rec for having the parks part of it for the first time, recommended it in building and grounds and didn't put it in parks, so.
And it's under land improvement?
Yes, he has it under,
It's 100,000.
he has it under land improvements, he had $100,000, so I'm proposing to move $40,000 out of there. Eliminate it, just eliminate it, yep,
So you have
so take that down to
60,000.
60,000,
Okay,
yep.
so your 296,000 is now
231.7,
The 25 is taken right out too,
that one's going to the, that's moving to the junior center.
another department,
Yeah.
okay.
That's,
Ryan, I can't remember if that was you or trustee Almarigi.
I think one of each, actually.
Okay. I thought I had one of them correctly. Are there any questions on this page? We didn't take a vote on this page last time.
Do you have a new bottom line on that one?
I'm sorry.
Do you have a new bottom line?
236.
231.7.
Thank you.
Yes.
for building and ground.
Okay, additional questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
I'm sorry, Karen, I did have another question on that.
No, go ahead.
I had mentioned that maybe the gas needs to go up. Did you decide against that?
I've not had a chance to look at that yet.
Okay.
We are in the next little bit going to be replacing some of our equipment to have a better handle on who's using what as well. So I do think not only will we have a better accountability, I think that because right now it's basically attributed to a flat cost to either DPW, police and or fire are the three categories right now. So I think we'll have a better handle on who's using what to a level with more accuracy.
So with DPW, you can't tell if it's from cemetery or from
Mhm.
parks.
Okay.
So I think that will be helpful as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on page 17, the roads committee met just after we met last week here in the same room after you all left. Some of Jason, I think trustee Almarigi stuck around, and then trustees Benzie and Rosecrans are on the committee. Would one of you like to discuss the items on page 17, or would you like me to brief the board on that? Okay. So, in taking a look at the recommended projects for 2022 that came from the Clinton County Road Commission, the regular maintenance portion of that budget is approximately $166,500. So those are items that we need to do every year, such as gravel, mowing, overband, brush spraying, and chloriding. In addition to that, the group would like to, let me make sure I get this correctly. Bonnie Meadows, Misaki and Rodman Roads need to be milled and filled, and they would like to complete that project, which is $115,000. I had initially projected a $400,000 level in this line item. They took a look at the available projects that need our attention, and they would like to complete the Meadows, not to be confused with Bonnie Meadows, which I just brought up, which encompasses almost 2 miles of mill and fill for English oak, teaberry, black walnut, sundew, periwinkle, and white clover roads at a cost of $445,000. That is a total of $726,500. If this board is not open to that, they would like to meet again. And in addition to that, you'll see there's a piece of paper in front of you all tonight that has projects on it that are to be considered for funding. They're also at the podium. Drumheller Road is contained on that list for $588,000 to be paved from Chandler to Webster.
Question. When you're talking about the roads, that 400,000 doesn't include the road commission, the 166,500?
It doesn't, because that amount from them changes every year. We get approximately, I think this year we got approximately $84,000 from them, which would generally it reduces our projects by about 15%. They take it off one project at a time. They don't take it off the bottom line.
So the 400,000 for your recommendation is minus 15% plus all of this additional?
I don't even
So
think
it's
about
not-
what they're gonna give, because I don't know year to year what I'm gonna get from them.
And that money doesn't flow through our accounts, right?
No, it doesn't. They
Yeah.
remove it before it comes to us. They remove the
So it shouldn't be in here.
amount that they're willing to
Wait a minute,
contribute.
when Brian says they remove it, what is that?
They take it off the invoice from us.
They don't send
They don't
us
give us
the
$84,000.
But what do we give them?
The money that's in the budget,
The 400,000?
or in this case, 726,000.
Well, with the additional new, but according.
But I'm saying if the project is $445,000, they might take, I'm gonna say $20,000 off of it. So I can't tell you what that amount is, because they do that before they send me the invoice.
So we don't really give them $400,000 then, right? That's just,
No.
that's on paper. That's not
It's-
an
it's-
actual
we-
account that they have.
We budget for the projects that we can afford, whatever those might be,
No, I understand that.
but we don't know what we're gonna get from them. So we never budget with their contribution in mind.
So we just arbitrarily pick a number and put it down to fill a space.
No, we pick
the projects
projects.
that we would like to complete,
Right. So
and
that-
then we
I
put
guess
that
that's
in
what
that
I'm-
space.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So the 400,000 is, or the 700, depending on, where this goes. Say, we'll just go with the 400,000 that we have. That's an arbitrary figure. They don't actually have $400,000.
Well, they did these estimates. we were working with their numbers.
No, I understand that, but we don't really give them $400,000.
No, they bill us for the cost of the project. So it's not like it's 400,000, we send them a check. We send them a check after this project, and we send them a check after this project.
Okay, so,
Many times it comes in under. This year it came in under.
so instead of 400,000, it should be 300 and some odd thousand. Because that's what their projects are.
At the end of the
Okay,
year,
help me out.
at the end of the year, whatever they bill us, it will be less than the 400,000 usually. Because
Okay.
there's some jobs they can't get done, and some jobs that cost less, some that cost more. But like this year, we got 50,000 back from them.
Okay, and that went into the general fund.
Yeah,
Okay. So again, the projects that you've mentioned, they aren't in addition to the 400,000, they are,
Including the 400,000. The
Well, that's what I mean.
726, yes, it's the normal maintenance, which is 166,000. It's Bonnie Meadows for 115,000, and it's the Meadows for 445,000, which totals 726,500.
but we don't give them 400,000. Okay, you guys move ahead, because
No,
this is
no,
not,
I want you to understand.
but I don't understand it. If we don't give them 400,000,
Can I try to help you here?
of course.
All right. So the bill comes in at 380 instead of 400. So I pay the bill. Okay?
But that's 22. So now we're gonna be in the hole, right? Or is this not gonna, they're not gonna have any more, that's it? That's the projects for the year of 22?
You know, you're jumping around on me here. I'm trying to help you
No.
with the costs, okay? The $400,000 project will either come in 20,000 under or 20,000 over or wherever it comes in at. Okay? Then you pay the bill.
But
Some
we,
projects cost more, some projects cost less. And some projects won't get done because they can't get to them.
So the initial 400,000 that I put in there was a placeholder. It was just
an arbitrary number.
It was just me saying, this is what we've spent in previous years. I hope that we at least spend that much this year. I'm gonna put $400,000 there, and we'll see once, because the projects don't come in when we want them to come in. So when I was creating this budget
right,
in August, we didn't have this list yet of projects.
Correct.
It didn't come in until September or October. So I had to make up a number, or else the budget would appear significantly off. We knew we were gonna invest some amount in roads,
So
we
they
just
do
didn't
have-
know what.
right, so they do have 400,000 now, because we're already giving them
No,
additional.
no. The 400 is just me writing a
You're
number.
not giving them anything. Your cost of your projects has been identified by the road committee and by the road commission.
Correct.
$400,000 for the total that they budgeted for here, as it's written in the budget right now. It's done on a cost share basis with the road commission. The projects, the total projects for all practical purposes won't be more than $400,000. However, there'll be cost share from Act 51 money that the county gets, because we don't get Act 51
No,
money.
we don't.
That will factor into that, and that will in turn lower the price of the 400,000 that's owed to the county when they're done with, completed with the project. However, there's often times when projects don't get completed because of restraints of weather, shortages for material, people, whatever. And so sometimes it doesn't all get done, and so that 400,000 is a place marker is what it is. And that's about all it is, but it's not to, if that is what this board agrees on, it's not gonna exceed that without a board amendment. However, it will come in less, depending on what our cost share is and what our Act 51 money that the county makes us eligible for, that they contribute towards it. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of that because most of the cost share money goes towards primary roads and things like that. They don't go towards the township roads. They rely on the townships to take and either have a road millage or find other sources of funding to take and pay for this. In our case, they're looking to fund this out of fund balance, but that's about as simple as you can say. It's not to exceed $400,000 if it doesn't get approved at that rate or whatever the rate is.
Whatever the rate is. So what they're asking for as of their last meeting was in addition to, so they wanted to complete the regular maintenance, they wanted to get Bonnie Meadows done. And so there was, out of that 400,000, there was approximately 118,000, but they want to put that towards another project, so they were hoping to put it towards the Meadows. But that would require the township increasing its commitment to the roads.
This is a general fund line item. And the road money that doesn't get used at the end of this year goes back into the general fund balance. It doesn't go back into a road fund balance. The only way that you could accomplish something of that nature is if you was to pass a bond or do something of that nature where you took and delegated money and funds to go towards roads, and then that would be a separate line item. Then it would be separate from the general fund, and that's how that would work. But this is what's put in there. It used to be the match with the when I first started, I think the match was close to 35%. I don't believe it's even nowhere near that. I think it's 18 to 20% now. That's about what it is from the county.
On
Match with the county.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I think they gave us 83 something this year to go along with our $400.
Yeah. So it's not even.
And they
it's
won't
like
deduct
everything else.
any of that money, he's correct, they won't deduct any of that money off the regular maintenance. It'll be the projects that we do. So if we were to do both the Meadows and Bonnie Meadows, they would reduce the total cost of those with that Act 51 money, but they would not decrease any of our regular maintenance.
So basically, a placeholder of 400,000, and then the projects that they want to get done equal that 726.
That's correct. They want to, yes, the road commission is asking for $726,500.
For these additional Meadows,
For
the road commission.
really, the Meadows is what puts them over the top, because that project alone is $445,000. And please, trustee Benzie or Rosecrans, if you have anything to say.
No,
Please.
I don't.
I just, you were there, so I don't
Yeah,
want to misrepresent anything.
we're not doing downtown, any of Bath Streets, which saved 105,000, because Jason said that they were going to go for the safe walk,
Align with the safe routes.
and he thinks that they could do the roads with that. Now, I don't know. So we went ahead and went with him and took 105,000 off, and that saved some.
Okay, so your 115,000 is, yeah, who's that with?
Bonnie Meadows.
Bonnie Meadows.
Bonnie
The
Meadows,
first one.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I.
We've been putting that off for 3 or 4 years because they were doing construction in there. And it's just getting worse.
So if you were to look at, Marie, if you were to take the regular maintenance and only do, I'm not suggesting this, only do Bonnie Meadows, you'd be at $281,500. So they were hoping to accomplish that extra project of completing the Meadows for that additional 400.
Instead of the 726 that you're talking
No,
about.
that all
No.
adds up to 726,500.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So when they meet, they don't have any money as a placeholder. They don't start at the 400,000
No.
mark. Okay.
They look at the projects that need to be completed and start trying to piece it together.
No,
Okay.
We have a history of doing these subdivisions, and where you get into trouble is if you don't have enough money to do the whole subdivision, then you have to go in and piecemeal it. And then everybody that doesn't get done the first go around is just screaming at you. So we've been very blessed in the last numerous years when we did a subdivision, Chandler Estates or some others that we've done, that we did the whole subdivision in one season, so it's everybody. So I support this, rather than trying to piecemeal it.
If you go in there twice, it'll cost you a lot more money.
Oh, I'm
Because
not
you're moving the
questioning-
equipment in, you're,
I'm questioning how you figured your dollar amount, that's all I was questioning, is you have 400,000, so, and that's in the year 22, so
I think you just need to just forget
it's,
400.
no, exactly, because it's a placeholder,
Yeah.
there's nothing there,
Yeah,
they
I
start
put
out
that
at
there,
0.
not without knowing any
No.
projects at all. So I think if you just forget.
But you're adding your 400,000 to their projects. So that placeholder then becomes a dollar amount.
They came up with projects, that
Right.
came up with a total. That's what they're asking us to put in there in place of the placeholder. They did not start
No,
out with
Placeholder
400,000.
means that there's nothing there.
I don't care what it means, I'm just telling you how it worked.
So, yes, so the three projects, the regular maintenance, Bonnie Meadows, and The Meadows, is $726,500.
With your placeholder of 400,000.
Just take that off the table. That's why I'm saying, just
You don't
take
even
it
count that.
right out
Oh.
of there.
Okay, so, okay. So 166,500, 115,000, 445,000,
Correct.
equaling your 726.
726,500, yep. So if this board says they're not willing to invest that much in roads, then I'll go back to the road commission and they will have another meeting. If this group says, yes, we're with you and we're interested in spending that much money, they're essentially all done.
And the road commission's 166,000 is going to equal, what are they going to do?
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
We don't know what their contribution.
We just give them X amount of dollars and they determine what for
They'll,
those dollar
whatever is
amounts.
available next year, they usually send us a letter in the spring and say,
Okay.
your allotment is this much, and we'll deduct it from your invoices as it's appropriate.
But we're still choosing the projects, not the road commission.
Right, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, no.
So I need feedback from this group of either you're interested in spending $726,000, or you're not interested in spending $726,000.
So I'm not necessarily opposed to that specific idea, but when you run the math, it brings us up to like 1.2 million in the red that we would be pulling out of fund balance.
Correct.
For somewhat a budget that is operational in nature, right? There's not like big, we're gonna do something big here. That makes me a little queasy.
Okay.
It takes you like 3-ish years to put that much money in there. And I'm worried if there's not a big project and it's mostly day-to-day operations, what happens next year and the year after that? So I'm not necessarily opposed to this pot of money for this thing. It's that sticker shock there of the end result that makes me a little nervous.
well, like the county tells us, if we don't keep these roads up, we're gonna end up with a gravel road.
I didn't want that, I have gravel roads, but.
Well, then,
having
yeah,
said
that subdivision will have a gravel road.
No, as it's been explained, sorry, you guys have to listen to that, but for me, it's kind of like trying to understand Greek. But as it's been explained, frankly, I support it. There are other areas that can be cut. The roads are really important. They are important. So,
Karen, 726,000 doesn't include Drummer Road, is that correct?
That's
No.
correct.
And so when we come with Ryan's math of 1.2 million, the same as what my math is.
Yep.
That includes Drummer Road. Correct, right?
No.
How did you come up with your 1.2 million?
I just added 326 to the current 900,000 that the budget was already in the red.
No, but this
Oh,
is,
for the red, I thought you meant
Oh.
the total road repair.
No, I'm sorry.
That number's the same thing for total road repair. Made me nervous. All right, that makes sense. I don't agree with it, not that I don't agree with you, I don't agree with this page. And the reason why I don't agree with this page is I think if you're gonna look, I've said this to a couple people. I think I said this to the chairman of the road committee here at the last meeting. If you're gonna spend $500,000 out of fund balance when you got $3.5 million, $4 million potentially by the end of the year here, that's one thing. But if you're gonna start spending $1 million, on roads and things like that, I still think you need to look into alternative funding. And you need to, you know what your base cost is. It's 162,000, whatever, I figured 200,000, because every year, they come back to us and they say, we've got X number of dollars left in the road budget, and we thought we ought to do this project or that project. I think it'd be easier just to say you've got $200,000 you're gonna spend in the base money for the roads, for what the road commission is gonna determine between chloriding, dust control, weed control, everything else that they do. You probably know more about it, Karen, than I do, and the road guys know a lot more about it. But I feel that for the capital investment into the rest of these roads, I think it needs to be, we have some time here in the next couple of, between now and the time you gotta ratify this thing, or approve the budget. I think you ought to look at looking at the total cost here, and I think we ought to look at alternative ways of funding this stuff. I still say you use money available with the budgeting things that they're coming up with and whatnot in the way of bonding for low cost interest on loans to take and do this over a number of years. I think we need to have a little more detailed. I think the road committee has done a fine job of looking at what needs to be done, and the road commission has done a fine job of that. Now we need to look at the financial part of it, and you need to look at the finances as far as what's out there in the way of funding, and especially right now with all the government money and funding and grant programs and everything that's out there, see if we qualify for some low interest money to do this over how many years we could do it over. And that's gonna be the big question. I know Al, Joe and I both have talked about this. 15 years is a number I've heard a lot about, this blacktopping and resurfacing roads. So in 20 years, let's say, how much will these projects will we do over 20 years? And can we bond for this money? That money, we get this low interest money, we secure it, it puts it in a secure place so that you don't have to take and worry about it getting rolled back into the general fund. It's there and it's dedicated to roads over the next 20 years, and you make payments on it. Realistically, you're gonna be probably, I bet you dollar for dollar, you'll probably be a lot cheaper doing it that way. Everybody's afraid of it because they don't understand the bonding process. I guess I'm not necessarily afraid of it. I'm afraid if we don't look, we're missing an opportunity here. That's what I'm afraid of. So I'd like to see this page get taken out, and I'd like to have a meeting with the road commission. I'd like to have a meeting with we can do this, we got time, with our folks who do our actuarials for us for other things that we do, debt service funding for sewer, like Baker Tilly. We could ask them that question. We could include our accountant, Mr. Aaron Stevens from Maynard Costerison. And we could see that what we could do with this before you make a big jump and you spend, $750,000 out of fund balance. Look and see what your other options are here. And realistically, you're going to spend $150,000 to $200,000 a year just for normal service, as I call it, to our roads. And I think that you could do some. I think you can do some more here. I'm not in favor of, and you all know that, I'm not in favor of budget and finance committees. You know how I feel about that. But, and I think that this thing could be looked at with some sort of a committee, but largely, a lot of reasons, is that door out there got a sticker on it? You can't shut them doors if it is, it got a sticker on it saying it's an open meeting.
Which one, this one?
Any of them. They gotta have that, the door's gotta be open.
Okay. This we're gonna hear off with if you don't mind,
That's fine.
because I just can't, I'm competing with hearing.
You can't have the doors can't be closed meeting.
Right.
Oh,
Myself included, with my hearing aids and the mask,
there you-
It's really hard.
it makes, you can probably all hear each other up there, but
I moved the mic closer to me so I could hear in the mic. I was talking about budget and finance committee. I don't think we're at the point where we need to have a budget and finance committee for the roads, but I think you do need to have people, I think you need to have staff members here look into this. I think I'd like to be involved in it. Anybody else that's on the board could be involved in it as far as that goes, and the road committee. But in the road commission, after we get to that point, and we know what our years are and our timeline is, we can take and get involved with Maynard, Custard, and get Aaron in here. And we could probably move it on if we thought it was worth looking at, after we get people smarter than I will. Could take a look at moving it on to Baker Tilly and actually see what it's gonna cost to decide to do this.
If we mobilized in that way, we probably wouldn't be ready until the 2023 construction.
Yeah. You could be ready in 2022, and that's my point of why I say that, is because everything you're gonna do right here tonight, or if you're gonna approve this thing, it won't matter what you do it next week, next month. You're still not gonna do anything till spring of 22. You have plenty of time to take it and have this stuff lined up, and the money is fresh, and it's already been approved at the government, at the federal government level. Whether we qualify for that or not, I don't know, but I got a feeling we're gonna qualify for the borrowing part of it. And it may make people nervous to borrow money, but this township has zero debt service other than sewer. Sewer is a whole separate fund. It has nothing to do with the roads. So it don't necessarily.
I think the only thing that
Intermix.
makes, that even gives me at all pause is that usually by the time we adopt our budget, we tell them what projects we're gonna do next year. So if we said we're gonna do the regular maintenance, but then we were gonna look into, bonding and go through that process, I don't know that we could do anything, I mean, other than that next year. I don't know what their drop dead date is for having to know projects, is all I'm thinking about.
That'd be the question to have when you brought the road commission here and you asked them this, because you gotta remember, number one, it's their asset that you're improving. So they're gonna have the final say, and they may even have to sign off if you're gonna bond for it. But I'm kind of guessing I'm thinking the way I think, that if you give them an opportunity to take and make them do something like this, they may jump at the chance for that. And that may be very easily done. And you may have to come back to this board, you may have to say to this board, okay, this is what they're gonna do, so we're gonna have to have a drop dead number, how much are you willing to spend, no matter what. But still, you have more information. I just think you guys are.
So we could leave this as it's written.
You could leave their entire budget for the DPW budget, you could approve that minus the road repairs, and they can wait until we get closer to adopting the budget to decide on that line item what you're gonna do.
Okay.
And it could be such a thing, and I'll let you talk here in a minute. It could be just a thing, such a thing as this, is you may approve your service, your base budget for the roads, and I think that's the way it's gonna work anyhow, because it's gonna be a different deal, it's gonna be a debt service project. It's gonna be no different when you built the fire station down over the hill here, I was involved in that. You're gonna have a separate payment, that's gonna be a separate payment and a separate line item.
So leave the 200 for regular maintenance.
You leave the 200 for maintenance, and then you'll have a separate line item. In other words, every year, the road commission's gonna get $200,000 to do whatever it is to make the roads pretty. And then your debt service piece of it's gonna be a separate account anyhow, I can tell you that, I know enough about the accounting to know if that's gonna happen. You're gonna have to budget for that every year. But I'll bet you the budget for that every year, I'll bet you could probably pay 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years worth of debt service payments compared to what you're gonna spend in 1 year here tonight, approving $700,000. I mean, that'll buy you a lot of years. That's like buying a house. I mean, you pay cash, you buy it on time, and that's what you're doing here with the roads. That's not a very good analysis, but that's about as plain as you can put it.
Can I ask my question now?
Yeah.
That's quite all right. I have no issue with that. I appreciate that kind of information. My very quick question has to do, is there anything that's coming out of fund balance? General fund
Not right
balance?
now, because you're not gonna do
okay.
anything. When you get
Well,
ready, when
no,
you
that's-
get ready to do your budget, you'll have to see where you told the general fund budget, you'll have to see how much money is coming out of fund balance and where it's coming from and all the different places it's coming. But for that line item,
Correct.
if you was approved $726,000 tonight, I would be willing to tell you, yeah, there'd be a big piece that'd be coming out of
Okay,
fund balance.
no, that was all I wanted to know,
But
is you're looking, whenever we're looking to subtract from the fund balance to cover
don't know
your
that until you're
2020.
done, because you're still dealing with the general fund. It's all one. That's the advantage, the reason why you would want to bond for this separately, so that it doesn't strap the general fund. So it doesn't make the general fund strap. That's the whole reason why you want to do that.
I'll recommend that at this time, we leave this page alone and revisit it later when we have more information.
But we're still gonna spend the 200,000 for our maintenance?
Well, no, we're just gonna.
Not
leave
gonna
this
worry about it all?
The whole page alone, just leave it at 400 and just move on. Till we have more information
Okay,
as to how we might fund some of these bigger projects.
I'll second
That's
it.
the issue you face here. We're getting requests for projects that are in excess of $500,000 that we have to do, that really there isn't a lot of room in the program budget to do that kind of work. But Treasurer Wishwasher is recommending that we look at alternative sources of funding so we can pay for some of these projects. That's so, I'm just saying, let's buy some time here and say, well, let's look in that direction. And just leave this page alone at this time.
In 15 days, you could have the answers to most of this. You really could. Now, whether or not you get the funding or not, well, that's a different deal, but I'm quite reasonably sure if the township has some pretty good credit, I think we probably qualify for the loan. The only question I would have would be that, knowing what the road commission's part would be, because they do truly own the road. And so they would have to sign off and agree on this, but it'd be like a free lunch for them. So I would think that would be a pretty easy thing to do, unless there's something legally saying that they can't, which I don't think there is, because I did some research on it, but let me ask you something, Al and Joe, you guys are on the road committee, and I'm not being sarcastic, but if the township didn't have $3.5, $4 million in fund balance, would we even be looking at some of this?
Just the maintenance.
Well, what we'd be looking at is what's available. And we're not talking just about the fund balance here. We won the lotto in this township last year.
Yep.
We won $1,300,000 if you want to look at that. So we would be having this discussion on just what we were going to spend this additional money on. Okay, and hopefully we wouldn't spend it all in one spot, but we have some additional monies. And based on what we're all looking at, we maybe even have some more additional money coming beyond the $1.3 million. And this borrowing concept that you brought forward is something we need to revisit or visit and see how that might really help us here. Okay.
In government terms, it wouldn't be referred to as borrowing. I refer to it as that because I'm a common kind of guy, but it's bonding is what it's referred to. But that is borrowing, is what it is.
Yes, it is.
It is.
That's not how you refer to it in the government side, it's bonding. But on the other side of the coin, it's better use of taxpayers' dollars, is the way that it gets looked, providing it's done right. And right now, the climate is such with road funding and repairs and money for infrastructure for this trillion dollar, whatever bill that we just passed
Infrastructure, yep.
is such that we qualify for that, and it's what they want us to do. So that's, we'd be remorse, we wouldn't be doing the right thing for the public if we didn't look at it. That's my opinion.
We would be glad to have you at our meetings.
No, I don't know what committee meetings, I just wanna go to the financial meeting here to know what we're doing here with this.
Okay, so at this time, we're leaving this page as is. Is everyone in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You wanna vote on that?
All those in favor of leaving it as is?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Okay, and so we're on to a new page, which is social services.
What is that?
This contains, this was a line, a department created by the previous board that Supervisor Paula Clark sat on. And it was built, under Dan Letitia to house, money that goes to community organizations that strengthen our community, including Meals on Wheels, the United Way, and Building Stronger Communities. It's a total of $5,700. Usually the organizations bill us yearly for their share of that, and we make the contribution.
Where was this before it became?
Spread here and there and everywhere. Probably Meals on Wheels was probably in the senior center, and 211 was, or United Way was probably in, I couldn't tell you, Buildings and Grounds or the Township Board or
Okay, because it doesn't say anything but social services. It doesn't say Meals on Wheels and.
It does down in the notes. It says
Where is
Building
it?
Stronger
Building-
Communities, Meals on Wheels, and United Way.
So those are the two.
3. There's 3.
Stronger, oh, I see, you're including Stronger Communities, Meals on Wheels,
And the United Way.
and United Way.
Yes.
So how do you divide that up? Do you,
There's specific dollar amounts that the contributions they ask for.
okay. But we don't know that, do we?
Well, I could tell you, but it's, okay.
Okay.
I can't tell you right now.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry. I can tell you in the future, but I cannot tell you. And that, I'd have to go back and get the invoices and tell you what they are.
Okay. Would you do that? That would help.
I can, yep.
I'm good with that page.
You're good with that page?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the Parks and Recreation page.
So we didn't vote.
I can have everybody vote on that. All those in favor of the social services page for $5,700, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed?
Okay.
I know.
Okay, so Parks and Recreation, Department 751, the major change here is the, one full-time employee, which would handle the, recreation programs and the farmer's market with a full-time benefits package. There is money allocated here, and there's money allocated also in the farmer's market. So that you're aware. This is much the same as the former recreation coordinator, had recommended. I will tell you, COVID tore this program, this department apart. We have been trying to maintain some of the activities this year. But as you can see, the spending in this department is extremely low compared to what's been budgeted. So I don't know if you have any questions.
It's low from previous budgets?
Yeah,
Is that
we
what you
spent 35,000 and it's budgeted for 145,000.
Oh, I have 171.
That's for 2022. I'm
Right.
looking at the 2021 spend versus what's been budgeted. So I'm just saying, like, COVID has impacted, COVID, the person leaving,
That's why it's increased.
the new hiring, yeah, so.
The new hire that you're talking about, and this is this individual would do recreation and farmers,
And farmer's market,
and
yes.
you're looking at a $42,000?
Well, there's 42,000 here, and then there's another 10,000 in the farmer's market.
Okay, so you want to combine those two in one budget?
Well, it's,
No.
for accounting, you probably won't be doing that, but,
Hmm.
am I incorrect, Treasurer Wiswassen?
You gotta keep it separate. When they're doing farmer's market, it'll be, well, 213 count when they're doing.
Right,
yeah.
And the other thing you gotta remember is you got different funds. You have a farmer's market fund, which is self-sustaining, and you have your, the Parks and Recreation is under the general fund, which rolls over every year.
Huh.
So every 2 weeks, a portion of their salary will come out of the farmer's market fund.
If you look at the farmer's market, just to throw this out there, for example, when I say self-sustaining, they haven't, I think, Ryan, they haven't had a fundraiser in 2 years. They haven't had a
Yeah, that's
fundraiser
correct.
in 2 years, and
Because of COVID?
this department, this farmer's market thing, I have so much respect for these people. They've taken and kept it together, and they have stayed within their budget. They haven't had a fundraiser, which was almost a third or more of their revenues, and they've managed to stay in the black and keep everything going. I'm not fully convinced that combining the two departments together is not real. I'm not really sure what I think about that, but I'm not the director of operations. You are. I just have a lot of respect for what they did here to keep their budget and balance and everything. They got a good crew. They do a good job.
They
And
do.
they know what they're doing. And Parks and Rec, I'm not saying they don't, but I just wonder if I just hope they get as good a representation from their farmer's market manager as what they've got in the past. And that's been really the key in the last year with Tom Straka,
That's
or I'll
correct.
say it, but he's gone now. We lost him to Minnesota. His wife got a job there, but he was excellent at that. And the board was, as far as excellence, the farmer's market board. They were great.
Very,
And they've done well for themselves.
all right, one other
Yep,
quick question.
okay.
When you do your building improvements, is that $2,575, is that for a new office? Is that what you're,
No.
okay.
Um, I can't tell you what it's for. I'd have to go back to the notes
Okay.
to tell you what it's for. Building improvement, generally, it's not gonna be, it's not in the same terms as an office improvement. It's gonna be a building such as like Westwasser Park restrooms, or it's gonna be something that's out in a park. It's gonna be a facility.
In one of our parks?
Correct.
But we don't know which one.
I would have to go back to the notes. This budget was based on it's literally a mirror of what was asked for in 2021.
Which one?
So
But
I'd
there
have to
hasn't
see
been-
what the project was that the previous Parks and Recreation coordinator identified.
But there's been no activity in 2021. That's why it's the same.
And until somebody new gets here and designs the program, it really can't tell you what's gonna be done.
And it's the same with the land improvement. That is because we're taking 2021 and moving it to 2022.
Correct.
Okay.
That's Park Lake weed treatment and
Oh, I'm
mitigation
sorry,
of
that's-
geese.
Down here, it speaks to that. And instead of 12, it's 25,000 for Park Lake weed treatment.
No, it was 31, it's the same amount. You're looking at what's been spent through the end of this year.
No, I'm looking at your notes down here at the bottom.
You said 12, though?
No, 25 is what,
25 and 2, yeah, but the line item is for 31 too, so there's additional money in there for another project.
Okay.
Do we have the additional $2,000 in here to hire somebody?
For mitigation of geese, yep,
Yeah.
$2,000.
Yeah, that's what it says.
So it's down there in that last,
Right.
974.
So it's in addition to, it's not minus.
27,000 total for Park
Okay,
Lake.
so it's in addition
Specific.
to, okay. Which is part of that 31.
Correct.
And then the remainder of the 31 is just,
Could be sand, it could be gravel, it could be something that
Okay.
it could be sand for the beach, it could be gravel for a parking lot, I'm not sure. I didn't copy the notes over, I was remiss when I didn't copy the notes over.
you know, I'm just curious with it.
I'm okay with this.
Okay. Are there other questions for this department?
The only other, and this is a thought, not a question.
Okay.
If you're including farmer's market in this, instead of having a separate page?
No,
it
it'll
will
have to remain separate
It has to
for
remain
accounting
separate.
purposes.
So-
It's a fund, the farmer's market is a fund. And it retains, any money it doesn't spend, it retains.
So this Park and Recs, which, how, they'll meet once a week or once a month, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. And they've okayed this budget?
They haven't met in quite a long time.
It's, okay.
But committees don't okay budgets, right?
No, they don't have to pay them, but
They make
that's why we go to
recommendations,
the
but-
road to ask them what they think. The same thing would apply
The
here.
structure of Parks and Recreation has
No.
been broken for a long time. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that we were trying to improve when we were changing the structure of this position. And that group will come together over reviewing applications and hopefully selecting and interviewing, or interviewing and selecting a recommendation for me to hire. Okay. Any other questions on this page? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, page 20 is operating transfers out. This is the amount of money that comes from the general operating budget that goes out to supplement the funds, which includes public safety, the senior center, the farmer's market, building and grounds. We do need to increase the senior center transfer out by $25,000 because I did move those building improvements. So
It's
that will-
181,464.
Thank you.
And that puts the total at 1,314,164.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
Any questions on this page? No? So I was looking at you.
No, I have no questions on this page.
Okay. All those in favor of this page, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed?
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't really make
It's really
sense
not
because
anything,
we're
but-
going to change the other, or
Yeah.
maybe later.
Okay, so this is the overall look at the revenues for the public safety fund, 205, which includes police and fire taxes at the millage amount of 1.427447. Any interest, at this time, we don't have anything listed there, and then the operating transfer in from the general fund to supplement for a total of approximately 2.5 million to operate police and fire.
So basically what we're looking at is millage numbers.
The top one is the 1,427,447 is your millage number.
Yep.
The 1,081,000 is the amount from the general fund that supplements this budget. For a total of 2.5.
So this dollar amount, so I'm understanding, this 1,081,000, 100,000, whatever it is, is the general fund
Yes,
for 2022.
correct.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ann.
This, we haven't got to the police and fire one yet, right?
Correct.
This is this the police, just their income? We haven't got to the expenses yet.
Expenses is the next page.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, just want to make sure.
Okay, so police department appropriations. We had, Chief Linda Mulder here recently to go over this with you, as well as, Chief Snyder to go over the fire department. If you have any questions about these, I can answer them. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Please.
Just, and you can answer it. Why is there $4,403 difference in salary? Am I not figuring that out right?
In which line item?
Oh, for the chief, police department.
What's your question?
My question is, there's $4,403 difference. So why is that pay increase? I guess that's what I'm asking. Is that-
Contract.
His contract,
Okay.
his negotiated contract,
Who do you negotiate with?
me,
Okay.
and the board approved it.
This dollar amount?
Yeah,
Or just
we're-
the
we're-
contract?
The whole contract, which includes the dollar amount.
What was the date
He's
of the last
also-
contract?
2000, I think it was 2019, but there's
I was gonna
a,
say, I don't remember.
there's a condition in his contract that says, the sergeants have to be a certain wage amount above the road patrol. The lieutenant has to be a certain percentage above the sergeants, and then the chief has to be a certain percentage above the lieutenant,
So that percentage, that's the $4,403 increase in his salary.
What he negotiated,
That's what I
Correct.
negotiated with Karen and whoever else. Okay,
township board voted on it.
okay, I'm just asking, just for clarification.
Okay.
Karen?
Additional questions? I'm sorry, Mr. Fugelsworth.
I see we're adding some salary, but when you look at the benefits line, we're adding $100,000 in benefits. It seems disproportionate to the salary added.
So the salary is for everyone in the, because you're adding 2 officers. It's 13 officers, it's the administrative assistant, it's the lieutenant, it's the police chief, it's everyone in that department.
So it's like
But they also.
$50,000 or $60,000 in salary overall,
Okay.
and $100,000 in benefits. It should be the opposite,
Okay,
because benefits are usually a smaller percentage of the salary.
I'd have to go back and take a look at what
Okay.
is.
You have officers retiring, you're replacing one, which is gonna stay the same, you have a new officer you're adding. I don't know what you did with part-time.
I would have to go back and look at the whole thing.
We'll skip this page right now.
We can. So fire department, questions on the fire department?
Excuse me.
Here you go, Deb.
No, you're.
All right. Negotiating with police department. Then there's no negotiating with fire department.
There is,
Oh.
their chief has a contract as well.
Okay, so their 2021 dollar amount is the same as their 2022, salary-wise.
I would have to
So is
take a look at
that?
that.
Whose salary you talking about, the
Talking
salary,
about
the chief's
chief's-
salary, or
chief's
the
sal-
officer's?
No, chief salary.
I would have to look at that.
So he negotiates also,
He does.
okay.
It's possible that when I received the budget from them, they had, it was keystroked in and not. If it's a line that they shouldn't fill in, I generally ask them not to fill it in, like the benefits,
Sure.
and then I fill it in. But if it was filled in, I probably keystroked it in and then didn't take a look to see what the contract said.
So we don't know what his dollar amount is that he negotiated.
It's probably.
It's in the contract, we know exactly
Yeah.
what it is.
Then,
Don't you read that? You don't know that off the top of your head?
nope. I've never seen a contract, so I don't know that off the top of my head.
I doubt there's anybody at this table that's on top of that either.
So, well,
But it could be corrected.
We'll have to revisit this.
yes.
when it gets corrected.
Are there
But
additional questions?
keep in mind on this one here, this is the one where the benefits was off. And
It
did
is,
the
and I had
correction,
to add.
and did the correction get made on that?
It did, 126.
All right.
Yeah, there's,
Karen,
Yes.
I'm wondering if we should hold off on the 2 full-time firemen until next year when we let the people decide if they want to pay the extra millage.
You're not holding off on your extra police officer?
No, you're not.
I guess I'm.
Exactly right.
Well, you're only holding off one police officer, and according to the chief, the overtime almost is a wash on the extra person, because they've been paying other people the overtime to cover that position. At least as I understood him.
Yeah, I understood him to say that too.
So basically, the police department was kind of a wash as far as overtime against the hourly wage.
I would have to take a vote here. I don't know whether or not that would be, if that's what their support for.
One of the things that I heard when I brought up the concept of increasing police and fire back in my first term was folks felt like there wasn't anything tangible to it. They didn't know already that we were subsidizing the police and fire fund from the general fund, and it seemed to be too complicated to try to communicate to voters. I think, as Al's describing it, that could be much more tangible to them. Here's exactly what we're going to do with this extra funding. It's not just replacing this other funding so we can have more money in this other fund. That sort of turned people off, including the police and fire board when we discussed that 5 years ago now.
Thoughts from other board members?
Well, for years and years, you voted for 3 mils of extra funding for the police and fire department. Now, from the common person that sits out in the audience and a resident that's out in the street or whatnot, they would assume that half of that money would go to the police department and half of it would be appropriated to the fire department. That's not the way it works. It goes into the public safety fund. Now, more legally than ever, because of the change of the uniform chart of accounts, which is coming in the end of 2022 here, it has to be done that way. So, as far as people's knowledge of how the millage works, and what the truth in taxation, I guess you could call it, for what they're paying on, it's there. It says right on the ballot language. I ain't got a ballot right here hanging in my pocket, but I believe it says it's to supplement the cost and defray the cost of the police and fire departments of Bath Charter Township. Nowhere does it say that it's paying for the whole police and fire. It says to defray the cost of operations for the police and for Bath Township police and fire. Nobody probably more than myself, who sat here for a lot of these things and sat here and watched this number grow, can believe what it costs to run a police department today. But on the other side of the coin, fire departments equally as well, equally as important. And that with it is more with our first responder piece of it and everything else. You got to look at that. I mean, that's $631,879 for the 2022 budget to have a full-time fire department is a bargain for everybody sitting in this room. I mean, and you shouldn't be, as hard as it is to get somebody to be a paid on-call firefighter and to have staffing and to be able to do what they do and have what we have here, we shouldn't be looking at nickel and dime in the fire department. I know you're not, Ryan, but all I'm saying is that I just think that we should be, that's more important than the roads are, in my opinion.
To be fair, that was Al's suggestion.
I thought I heard you say that. I right.
He agreed with me.
I understand why you're nickel and diming now. But no, I really don't. I just think that you need to approve this thing and let them grow as they do. You don't even know if you're gonna get these people, to get somebody full-time.
That's the question.
That's the whole thing, but I'm gonna tell you right now, if you don't get it, the money's gonna go into the public safety fund. And at the end of the year, and it's gonna be saved for public safety, and we talked about this at the last meeting. You know, it's like the fund balance is gonna get transferred here Wednesday, and that's when it's gonna happen. For this year's thing, it's gonna be there. If they use it, they use it. If they don't, it's gonna be for next year. So when we sit at this table next year, for some of us up here, if we sit at this table, I don't want to get COVID or something, next year, you're gonna have money that you can say, oh, we need some extra money to put in the public safety fund. We can go back to our fund balance and say, I vote we take X number of dollars out of the public safety fund balance and move it forward to this year to help us along. I believe it was our missing trustee that said, I'm trying to remember what the word was they used, but he said that we were approving something that we didn't have, and that in the future, what are we gonna do? Well, in the future, you're gonna have more money in there, because you have a fund balance, because this is a new fund, and the money's gonna be there. I don't know, I think the fire department is very, very, well officiated by our fire officers and our chief and all the members of the fire department, and I think that you need to think about this, because this is important. If you can afford to spend the kind of money you want to spend on some of these other things, you certainly ought to be able to afford public safety and welfare at the fire department.
Can I have a turn now?
I'm sorry.
No, because I'm next, so go ahead.
You guys?
I'm next.
You
Go
can't
ahead.
be.
Nope.
I know we need these people. And so I support this. And they'll have to deal with the numbers later, and I've met with both of them, and we've had that discussion.
And I have to,
Now it's your turn.
Now it's my turn. All right. For me, what I don't understand, and this would help to defray the cost for law enforcement, and I know I've talked to people about this, and one of the arguments is a reason for not doing it. However, I'll go into that. We don't write our tickets under Bath Charter Township law. We write it under the state. So that revenue goes to the state as opposed to Bath Township. Now, the argument that he's given, not argument, it was a discussion that we were having. It had to do with the fact that we would have to pay a city attorney to go into court if someone objected instead of a prosecutor in doing it. However, I don't know that there's ever been a complete study on how many tickets we write, what it is, how many have been deferred, or how many have been argued with the prosecutor. That revenue should fall under Bath Charter Township. So tickets being written under, and you can, under your own ordinances, as opposed to state law, does make a difference from my standpoint. So I would suggest with this, when we're talking about the amount of money that it costs to run a police department, which it is huge, in here I'm not seeing anything about the revenue that has to do with writing under an ordinance as opposed to state law with your vehicle code.
That was in the first page that we discussed, way back in there.
Okay, so help me out then. What am I missing?
A civil infraction is written by our ordinance compliance officer.
No, not an ordinance compliance. I mean running a stop sign. I mean speed. I mean whatever's in the vehicle code can be written. It's not an ordinance.
It's a civil infraction.
It's your.
And people
it's your
come in and
police
pay
officer.
civil infractions for
And-
handicap violations
Correct.
and different.
And so what I'm saying is, as opposed to being written under state law, that they be written under our ordinance or under, because we can adopt state law.
Okay.
That's been done by a lot of communities. And that, of course, and the argument being, or the other side of it is that you have to pay your city attorney to go up to St. John's if someone is fighting that ticket, as opposed to a prosecutor who comes in and argues for the state for that infraction. So I'm just saying, it's just, I'm throwing it out there, because we keep talking about how much money it costs for police departments. There are ways of being able to adjust that to a degree. So that's my only comment with that. With the fire department, I have a hard time saying this is okay when the numbers aren't there. I would much rather see the numbers, in other words, for his salary.
That is the number for his salary. So
And
there were
it's the same-
27 pay periods in 2021. So we added that amount to his 2021 so that he would receive additional pay. So that is the contracted amount is $69,969.
Which is the same as it was in 2021.
Because there are 26 pay periods in this, in
So-
2022.
Last
and
year
there
was
are
a leap
27
year. It was a
in
leap year.
2021.
So there was no negotiating, where there was negotiating for $4,403 increase with our police department, but no increase with our fire department.
There was an increase, but we didn't account for the 27 pay period, so he received additional money in 2021 to account for the additional pay period.
And they don't negotiate every year, just when the contract is up.
Okay,
So it's not like they go back in and they rehash it
But
out.
I also explained to you that the police chief has to be a certain
Yes.
percentage above.
oh,
all
it
the
can be
rest.
$1, it can be $1. I understand that. But all I'm saying is, because we have the same, I'm not sure you said you were gonna check and see.
So here.
Okay, thank you. So we're saying that we paid him more in 2021,
Because there was an additional pay period.
and so in 2022,
Uh-huh.
it's the same dollar amount? So he doesn't get, like you've done across the board that I have, trying to figure out in my head, the 3%?
His is contracted, it's in a contract, so there is no 3%.
Percent. I understand that, and that's what I'm trying to figure out.
So he was supposed to get a lesser amount in 2021, but we increased it because of the extra pay period.
And I believe if you look back, it's a board action, that we actually took board action to do that. You wasn't here, Marie, that was before your time.
Because that doesn't sound.
Well, it is right, because I was here, and it was done
Okay.
right, and it took board action, and the whole board voted on it, unanimous vote of the board.
I
Al,
get
you
it.
were here, you remember as well as anybody, and I think Joe may even have been here. But you voted on this across the board that they can make it whole. Otherwise, it was somebody, the whole board, the whole staff, I should say, was gonna go one pay period without getting a paycheck in 2021 because it was a leap year. You would've went 4 weeks without a pay period.
Right.
I don't know if too many people do that, and we didn't figure that was right, and the board voted against that, or voted to take and correct that, and he fell into that category, because he got brought up in the, specifically, because he would have been affected by it, and he did, as well as, that included contractual as well as staff members, non-contractual employees.
Okay, so that included for the chief of police with the salary, because that was something that was
Yep.
very hard for me to understand, how you would not know.
His $4,000 is purely, if you look that up, and it's a percentage of whatever the highest
No, I'm
paid,
talking
what the
about
highest paid
2021.
person is, it's up and above. Every year it is, well, that's in his contract, that's the way that's written.
Okay.
A contract, if you go hire a plumber to plumb your house and you sign a contract with him, I'll guarantee you the
I
contract with a
understand
plumber
contracts.
is gonna be different than what the contract's gonna be for the framer, the guy who's gonna frame your house. We're talking two different things here, we're talking
Right.
police chief and a fire chief.
And somehow it doesn't seem right that one pay period would make a difference for a salary for 2022.
It's a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Which also included for your fire chief, or your police chief.
It's a different situation.
Different situation
Okay.
entirely with the fire and
Because-
police chief.
He negotiated.
Yep.
They both
No.
negotiated.
If we can, I'm okay with the
That's,
fire
I was gonna say,
department.
move along.
Okay.
We vote on
Any
this?
additional
We'll vote on
questions
this.
on this page? All those in favor of this page say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
All right, into Fund 209, at the top of the page, you have revenues from the sales of foundations, interments, as well as burials. Cemetery lots and plots, headstones, and opening and closings for vaults and cremains. At the minimum, I expect the cemetery to bring in approximately $18,000 next year. It could be more, it could be less. At the bottom of the page is the appropriations, and on the following page, there are some notes on page 25. We'll visit those in just a second. So DPW takes care of the cemetery, as does the clerk's staff, as well as additional front office staff. So what you'll see here are just the basics: operating supplies, utilities, repair and maintenance. The building improvement is there is a shed over in Rose Cemetery that needs to be taken care of, and some land improvements. If you look to the next page, 972 and 974. Treasurer Westwasser and I discussed this at length about there being a fund balance expenditure to pay for the new siding, overhangs, and roof for the shed at Rose. And also there being a fund balance expenditure for the concrete bunker storage for soils and materials for the cemetery. So that's taking money that they have in their savings account, essentially, the cemetery fund balance, and paying for those improvements. And then the rest will come from those revenues, and then be offset by any additional fund balance that's needed there. Trustee Buenos.
I know Jason had asked about getting individual funds fund balance. Do you know what the cemetery's fund balance was?
I don't have my audit with me, but I think it's $150,000.
Oh, geez. I could only see it in the audit mixed with the other funds. Did they separate it out?
Yes.
Yeah, some of the senior center.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring my fund balance sheet with me. Or I could give that to you, but they have a significant amount. And then the $6,700 on the bottom line, 991, operating transfers out, is a transfer out to the general fund to cover for DPW time and wages that they spend doing cemetery work. And that goes back to the general fund. Any questions on this one?
Say that one more time. The 999.
Yep,
Is
991,
that-
so 209, 270, 991, operating transfers out for $6,700.
Is for,
DPW time,
because that wasn't figured in your budget.
it never is, because there's no staff for this department. DPW covers the staffing of this department.
Okay.
The expenditures sit in the general fund, so this is to pay the general fund back.
Cemetery has no employees.
Right.
DPW is the employee sector, so different than out here in front where we do
Exactly.
sewer, water, and all that. We transfer money from the funds back into the supplement the general fund for the cost of the employees.
Okay.
And Karen, is this $36,600 at the end? That's including leaving that as it's written, the 15,000, the 2,000, 2,000 for building improvements, and the 15,000 for land improvements. That's leaving that in there. Is that correct?
Correct, it'll just where you appropriate it from.
So it'll actually be lower if you're gonna
Yes.
appropriate from, it'll be lower on the fund balance, so you can lower
Yes.
the general, you can lower the cost by $17,000.
Correct, because that you'll be taking that from fund balance.
Yeah.
Correct.
When you have a substantial cemetery fund balance,
Mhm.
that you really need to spend the money on something. You can't just continue to take and grow money in the cemetery fund balance. And so when you do improvements and projects like that, that's really the only place you have to take and spend money in the cemetery. Cemeteries are other than lawn mowing, things like that, they're not a big,
You want to answer that?
they're not a big expense.
It's a lot more than just mowing the yard. And,
Yeah, it is. Anyone have additional questions on this fund? If not, all those in favor of this fund say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Karen, could that number have been 151525? Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Thank you.
Here, quick. What you're seeing on page 26 is the senior center revenue fund. The next page is the expenditures, so we'll cover the revenues first. I did not account for revenues as the senior center has collected in the past due to COVID. The senior center has been unable to host fundraising activities. They have in the past did a great big Elvis event at the auditorium at the school. They had a concert at the senior center, which brought in revenues. And I did not account for those things because we cannot count on those things at this time due to COVID and the spread of it. So I have left that line, fundraising and donations, empty, so that is at 0. Also donations at 0. What I have accounted for is the senior center meals. Now I shot low on this, and this may, this could be higher because we've had much higher numbers. But what I did was I did 145 serving days times 35 meals, and they've averaged anywhere from 45 to 55 a day. So I am going low, times $4 a meal for $20,000. So I'm estimating they'll have at least $20,000 of revenue. That number could be higher, most likely will be higher. The other revenue that I am accounting for is revenue that they get from some of their smaller programs like line dancing, bridge, bingo, and other programs. While cards and other games are suspended at this time, I'm hoping for them to be able to return somewhat to having some of the smaller programs where they can spread out, such as line dancing and yoga, for at least $1,200. And then the $135,000 is a transfer in from the general fund to supplement their programming. Questions on the revenues? Go ahead.
When you transfer in, it's $135, but you have 0 zeros for a recommended budget. So you're recommending zeros, but transferring in $135,000.
I can't count on them to be able to raise the revenue, so yes, I have to account for it from the general fund.
Whether they use it or not. If they don't use it, then it goes back.
No, it stays with them because this is a fund.
Okay.
It stays with the senior center. The revenue, the expenditures are on the next page. This is just the
No,
revenues.
I understand that.
Okay.
No, so basically, they keep this revenue.
If it's not expended at the end of the year, yes, it is.
They don't keep it, but the
Well,
revenue
yes.
stays in the special revenue
Yes.
fund pertaining to the senior
Senior
center,
center.
211 special 11.
So you can dip into that if you need to for 2023.
If you had to,
If you had to. Okay. Nope, that's
if there was anything there to dip into.
exactly.
I think right now they have 30, through their dedicated fundraising efforts, I think they have at least $30,000 in fundraising that's been retained in that fund.
30,518.
Perfect, thank you.
And that operating transfers in went up then too, right?
Yes, because of to 181.
264?
Thank you. Because we transferred the 25,000 here. Under building improvements. So it would go under 211, 805, 972, I would add the 25,000 there.
And Karen, have they thought, is there a project that they're raising money for that they're trying to keep in, or is that money
They
that could be
have-
available for some of the updates?
Don't think that they've discussed that. I don't think they've discussed that in quite a while. I could be incorrect.
Because of COVID.
Because of COVID, okay. So on page 27, you have the salaries, benefits, office supplies, the food expenses, and then all of the regular education and training, and equipment purchase that you would have to run that building and that program. Are there questions?
So your revenue equals your expenditures.
Correct.
Okay. That's- Interesting.
I don't have any trouble supporting this as written.
Okay. Are there any additional questions? All those in favor of the senior center fund, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Following on page 28, you have the farmer's market fund. Same format, you have the revenues at the top and the appropriations at the bottom. Fundraising accounts for some of their projected revenues, as well as rent, which is the rent they receive when when somebody comes to the farmer's market and has a booth to sell their products, as well as an operating transfer in from the general fund of $4,945 for a total of $10,745. As Treasurer Wisswasser indicated, they have not had a fundraiser in 2 years, 20 or 21. This has significantly, they've done well despite not being able to have those. I think they're looking to the summertime of 2022 to have somewhat of a farm to fork event. I don't know what that will look like at this point, but they are certainly looking forward to having some type of an event for the community. The appropriations at the bottom, again, you have salaries. I have no.
Excuse me.
You have no-
I have nothing there.
Did you move it?
She did. It was-
Yeah, this went to Parks and Rec.
Yeah, it's in Parks and Rec.
That's the 10,000, well,
Yeah.
you know, you said they had to have two separate.
Well,
so this
it's-
would be 10,000.
No, it was intentional because it balances, so I would have moved it. It's contained in the Parks and Rec. But the rest of the items are contained here for the operating of the farmer's market.
It keeps the funds that are coming in specifically to this fund in this
Yes.
fund.
Yes, but I was thinking that I had done similar to what I've done with, like fire marshal and code enforcement, is that sometimes their salary comes from two different places. I don't know why I deviated from that on this.
Well, because otherwise we're just putting money in this account to pay
Right.
for this other thing from the same account we just took it from. So
Correct.
it's less work for maybe our friend the treasurer.
That's a Bring magazine, where so I have something to do with it. Reading.
I'm a friend of treasurer.
So basically, the dollar amount that you have for
42.
the rec includes,
Yes.
because that was a question I had.
Yes,
and you
so
said, no,
it's 42.
it would be
No, I thought it was.
separate.
I
Okay.
try to be
Okay.
consistent when I
Nope.
make those decisions, but apparently I was not consistent.
Okay.
That was fair, Ryan. I goofed you up with Al. I'm owing you for a long time.
But the rest of the revenues and expenditures, yes, are coming appropriated and coming from here. Question, Marie?
No, I was just looking at what you're putting into the farmer's market, which is that 4,945. You're transferring it in, and I assume, ASSU and me, that has to do with not being able to do the fundraising because of COVID. Okay.
But that, I don't think that's right.
No.
Because you've got fundraising represented here. We've always subsidized the
Well-
farmer's market staffing with some general fund staff.
To a small extent.
I was just gonna say, not
Not-
huge,
Yeah.
but that's, I'm assuming that that's what. that-
From year to year, it depends on what programs they have.
I mean,
If they have done
previously
food
it's been-
bucks, if they have,
Right.
if they have all these different food, programs for, special needs people, whatever, and we participated in that. We even got some grant money that we participated in. We did that with. So
But
if you look back
previous
in
years it's been-
19, it's
yeah.
almost mirrors what your
Exactly.
transfer was in 19. And 20 and 21, it was a little higher. The reason why it was a little higher because they didn't have a fundraiser. And we budgeted for that. And that was the reason why it was that way. The board before this board budgeted them 2 years for that.
Certainly did.
I'm good with this page.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of the farmer's market fund, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. On page 29, you have the building and zoning department, otherwise known as your building department, and this contains the salary as well for the planner. Excuse me, and the fees for AGS, along with legal fees for anything that is specific to this department, which would include marijuana, or any review fees for our engineering, and, excuse me, any legal reviews that need to be done for developments. So what you see at the top is the revenues, zoning application fees, building permits, trade permits, interest at zero, and then an operating transfer in, for a total of $221,623. And then down below, you have the salary and the temporary salary for the planner and the planning assistant, benefits, office supplies. The contractual and professional is AGS and legal. Printing and publishing, as they're required to publish notices for their public hearings and anything else that they may have in way of developments, education and training, dues and memberships.
Karen, can
Yes.
you repeat what the temporary salary is?
It's the assessing assistant, or excuse me, the planning assistant.
Who is that?
It's, right now it's a young lady, it's, Felicia.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
From, MSU.
okay.
Help me with this. You just recently renegotiated the costs of this department.
Yes,
Okay, can you help me with when that was, in the last couple of years?
20. I think it was in 20.
In 20, okay, so we're up to date then on what they're charging.
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, at some point during 20, we were shut down, and they could not,
Mhm.
so, we have seen a boom.
Oh, yeah.
So, we're hopping right now.
I don't have a problem with this page either.
Additional questions? Yes.
Does this fund have a fund balance?
That was,
Thank you. I don't know that I can answer that.
There's nothing called building and zoning, but there's one called public works?
No.
Um,
Public Works, we same thing with DPW.
Right.
That's DPW.
But that's not a fund, right?
No. You just have to look into that, the notes on that one, that's done Public Works to see what exactly that's for
specific.
there you go. Specific, that's a specific, note, but that's what that is.
Yeah, I don't see anything else that it could be, but there's 136,228 in public works.
You don't really, it don't make a lot of sense that they can have, they try to budget as minimum, but we always have the budget as minimum as we can
Right.
in building and zoning. I'll tell you why, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to do this, is because there again, here we go again, it's kind of like attorneys, we talked about this the other night. Oh, these people are contractual, and it's dependent upon the building and zoning department and development and whatnot, and we don't really think the public's money should be put towards developers or towards contractual people. So we try to keep the bare minimum of the thought processes in there and make sure that it operates within the black, and that's about all we want to do. It's a special revenue fund, the same as what the rest of them are by law, but it's not, there's not much in the way
I
of
think
fund balance there.
this is one that I would, where the others, we generally appropriate over what they need. This one, we do the minimum.
We do, in fact, lots of times we'll take, and you'll see in December, we'll take and make a budget amendment, I don't know where we're at, what I haven't looked at, we'll make a budget amendment for the end of the year and amend it if we're a little bit short. I'd rather be a little short all year long and fix it in the end, because, you might better put that money in sustainable type funds that are sustainable over a period of years. That was the big word that Jason used on me the other night. That was would take and last for down the road for people that are actually gonna feel the good and see the good of it. We're here, I mean, I don't know about you folks, but yeah, I welcome new build houses and builders and people building homes and everything, but we don't really wanna give them anything more than we have to. They're here, they're contracted, they have a contractual agreement, and they take in contract for their money. We get a percentage out of everything they do. It's in our favor.
So Steve, you're saying before the end of this year, we would decrease this 2021 47,285 because they don't need the entire amount?
It's hard to say what we'll do with that. You know, you got a lot going on right now with building, and there's an uptick in it right now, so who knows what we're gonna do. The only thing I can tell you about this and this thing as well is there's also, there's the intern lady that works in this department, building and zoning. The planner comes out of it.
Yes.
Beth comes out of it a little bit when she does some work back there. I don't think her thing gets involved in it other than contractual and professional services, maybe reviews by attorneys and engineers. But, yeah, it's kind of like the attorney line item. We'll keep it lean if we can. If it's got a big balance right now, I haven't looked at it in the last month, but if it's got a big balance in it, yeah, I wouldn't get excited about it because we've got a ways to go here. But I would think I'd rather have it be short and take it amended at the end of the year, not have as much money in there. Because I just don't think you don't need to carry much money in there.
Yeah, I mean, we're already trending 30,000 in the black, and that's without you transferring anything in.
Yep. And we looked at some stuff too for making some changes, but they're in the process. As far as, I don't know where we're at with it, I think we're still waiting for the accounting service to come back with a manual on it.
We are.
As far as our building permit process and whether or not we're doing things correctly or not. They had lots of ideas, but they ain't put anything in writing for us yet.
Marie,
Question
go
for
ahead.
Ryan.
Oh, okay.
No, he mentioned the 30,000 in the black.
Yep, up top, it's 228,750.
226.23. Is that, am I in the right spot?
No, 228,758.
Go left one column. The year-to-date column.
Okay,
Yep.
that's what,
That's revenue.
no, that's what we've spent from November 7th.
No, that's revenue.
That's revenue.
Okay,
Collected year-to-date.
it's collected. So that's where you're coming up.
Yep, and then
It's
down below,
subtracting-
197,463 is what we've spent.
Okay, so it's the difference between these two.
Yep.
Gotcha. Thank
So
you.
at this time, they don't need any transfers in, the way they're running right now.
And we probably won't if we don't have to. That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, but what you said previously was you have to do
Wednesday, a lot of this is gonna take place this week.
Right.
And we're gonna take a good look at it, but I don't think that one we won't do until probably December.
But to prevent that money from going over, we have to take action.
Yes.
Is that what I understood you saying?
That's correct.
Okay.
But here's the thing, what our safeguard is if you look at the appropriation transferred in, 46,623, 47,285,
285, yep.
hasn't been done yet.
Right,
In other words, we haven't took that out of the general fund.
right.
And we won't
Moved
if
it
we don't
over
have to.
there. And I don't know about that one. I don't think I'll move that one Wednesday. I think we'll probably
I
wait.
think I'd hang on to that one and see what
We'll
happens.
watch.
That's one of the joys of being a treasurer.
Yep.
Every day we watch. All right, additional questions on this department?
Good catch, though.
Hearing none, all those in favor of the building and zoning department, fund as is written, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Incidentally, on that, one last thing to be said, if you don't pretty good year for
Yeah.
development here.
Yeah.
That's
That
the
is
thing
true.
to look at.
For your buildings,
I
yes.
think things have went pretty well for development, for economic growth.
Yeah, I mean, we should be 50 in the hole, and instead we're
Right, 30.
30
Right.
to the good.
Yeah. So the next two pages, 30 and 31, are drug forfeiture and police training. These are funds that are used by the police department and often receive, like this one, the first one receives fines and forfeits, and then uses that for equipment purchase. Page 31, they receive state grants, and they do education and training.
A quick question.
Go ahead.
On page 30, there's been no activity since November 17th, but we're still going to fund $1,000 even though they haven't used it?
So if there hasn't been any, if they haven't received any money, they most likely won't spend any money.
Okay,
This will be, most likely this will be amended when we look at our budget amendments.
okay,
Are you
Um,
referring to the drug forfeiture one?
yes.
Well,
It's possible
they
either
have-
they,
They've had a pretty slow drug trade here. in
Yes,
Val.
they have. That's what I'm saying.
They haven't had any instances where they've taken in any money. It's kind of hard to predict that, but you
Yeah.
have to have money there. This drug forfeiture
So-
money, actually, that money gets spent for down below there, but it gets spent for equipment and things of that nature.
so you'll also see that
So
there's
you
no
move it.
spending, as, there's also, there's no revenue, but there's also no spending.
So you move it. Because
No, we'll probably zero it out. If we
Okay,
don't
zero it
receive
out.
any money, we'll probably zero it
So
out.
net is zero.
that's what you have for 19 and 20.
Yep.
And that's what in 21,
Yep.
and without any activity.
So we'll probably
So
zero it out.
22.
Yep.
Because that $1,000 can be put somewhere else.
The $1,000
But it's not.
doesn't exist.
But it doesn't, it
That's
comes from,
exactly right.
but
It's
it
on
comes
paper
from the
only.
state.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
it comes from the
So it
state,
could,
or fines and
We
forfeits.
can't sell drugs. We can't go out and buy them, we can't sell them here.
darn it.
But we can give people permits to do that.
According to federal government, not according to Michigan, but, okay.
So all those, if there are no questions on drug forfeiture fund 265, go ahead. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Those opposed?
Opposed? I don't see that.
Okay, and then police training, are there questions on that one? As you can see, Marie, there's been an intake of state grants, $610.94. There's been education and training expenditure of $650. It may be that there's another payment expected before the end of the year.
That number is after change here Wednesday as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
The Sigma report, I have the new
Thank you.
Sigma report out.
Oh,
and
okay.
It just recently
So
came
can
out.
we just skip that?
The Sky,
Right.
they get notification from the
The state.
estimated revenues from the state of Michigan that deals with the police grant. And that they know what they've applied for and what they haven't, and what they're gonna be accepted for. And these numbers are real numbers. They just, some of them come in, just about everything today. Since 2018, we've had a program in the state of Michigan called Sigma. It used to be, you used to get revenues, and you'd get a check in the mail, and it would come with a ledger, and it would tell you what it was for and what everything is. Now they have our bank account number, and they transfer money electronically into the state of Michigan, the Department of Treasury, into our bank account number, and I get a super secret password and a thing on Sigma. So it's about 129 pages long, and I go through that, and I pick out the grants and the money that Township gets, and I can look at it that way. It really is, it's pretty good, really, to be honest with you, but it's different.
Time consuming.
2018 was the first year it came out, 19 it really got going, 20 was so-so with COVID, it was a problem. And this year it's been right on the money. And it tracks everything. It tracks our federal payments, it tracks our state payments, it tracks everything.
Yep.
And it's got them all right there, and it's a good thing.
I've never gotten money from the state so fast as I have this year.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they seem to have a lot of money.
Very appreciated.
So the police chief is expecting at least 2,300.
Okay.
based on his estimates here, so.
For grants.
All those in favor of the police training budget, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, what you have next is the library fund. Beth and Steve calculate a lot, maybe Steve does not, I don't wanna cut you out, Steve, if you do. Calculate the millage that's anticipated from the library millage, and that amount comes in here for current property taxes, and then they provide us with a copy of their approved budget, which is the program cost down below, and we distribute the funds to them. So this is the library millage in summary.
So it's in the black, or in the red, I'm sorry. It's in 21, your budget was 307,000, whatever. And in your activity is 308.
He is, I'm gonna guess, not done.
Okay.
Actually,
Collecting.
what they don't tell you here, what you did here when you did this, is you gotta remember, we have a contract with the library,
1%?
we retain 1% of it for
Right.
administrative costs.
But it's opposite of what you just said, Marie. We took in 308, paid out 307. So it's in the black.
So, well, that's what I see you amended. Well, no,
And
you're,
incidentally, this is audited by the county tax settlement as well. And I think, I didn't read it because I haven't got to worry about it with this tax disbursement, because it's not going to qualify for this one, because the new library millage, if I'm not mistaken, Karen or Brenda, will be start in 2023, correct?
Yes, yes.
The 2023, and I'm not sure what the ballot language said, but I believe they when they did this, they wanted to keep on the same way as what they were doing, and we were gonna collect it here and move it forward.
Yes.
The same
Yeah.
as what we were before. They're gonna turn some voucher, let's do the 1836 or 37, called the
Yes.
gap. Some of the libraries could do that.
Brand new.
Yeah, so, wait,
so when you use the term new millage, you don't mean new millage, you just mean depending on,
their new
Well, they
thing,
had
their new path, no,
Okay.
I'm talking about their new millage.
okay,
The public just approved a new millage, it'll be in
Renewal, yep.
2023, it'll start in
for 10
2022.
years.
They were actually, yes, it was, they were
Okay.
actually a year ahead of time in doing this, because they still have a year left. 2022 taxes will be collected under the old millage, and then in 23, because all taxes are collected in the rear, you'll start collecting on the new millage. I think, am I right,
I
Brenda?
think that's correct.
Yes.
So when you say new millage, what they just voted for was not the same
It's a renewal.
It's a
But
renewal.
not
Just a
It's
renewal.
renewal, but they did it for 10
10
years.
years, which makes sense.
And you'll see that go down.
Yeah, I had a question about that.
You'll see that by Headley go down in about
That's
5 years. They're
5
gonna,
years.
they're gonna be back knocking on the door.
But
Yep.
why do you, why, let me spit it out here.
That's the way it works.
No, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about, in 2021, they brought in 308, or we did for them. Why would we think that that would go down?
Why did they think it would go down?
No, why did we, because we came up with this number, right?
Yep. Why did we think it's gonna go down?
Yeah.
As a Headley, by Headley, it will reduce each year by the amount of whatever the Headley rollback is. You're only talking 0.68% or whatever it is for the millage.
But that's true of our millage too, right? And our millage is going
That's
up.
for everybody's millage, it's
Yeah.
across the board. Beth would've came up with that number,
She did.
and I would've ran it up the pole, as I do, I have to. But that, it goes by Headley, it goes down, and it will do the same thing with their new millage, it'll go down every year, but for 10 years, it'll go down a lot farther than what it does for 3 years, what they used to do. So it'll be substantially less at the end. When they get 5-6 years out, they're gonna be a little less. Now, with that being said, the township's taxable value is going up every year, so maybe there'll be enough growth. There might have been somebody smart enough, the attorney's the one that figured this out for them, I believe, but there might be enough growth they figured to offset it, but I don't think it will.
But wouldn't those two things trend together?
Should. We'll find out.
Would someone ask Beth that, or should I ask Beth that?
Her and I discussed this quite a bit, actually, when we were doing this, and we actually recommended that they, well, as we didn't recommend them, we asked them why they were doing that, and they wanted to do it that way. So that's the way they did it. And the board, and the public, I'll say this, the public overwhelmingly voted for this thing.
Mhm.
And so it was, as well as myself, I support it. But I think that down the road here, I think they might want to have to adjust it. I don't know. We'll have to see how our trends go. You're not going to know till you into it.
Is the 1% taken before it gets into this fund?
Yes.
That's correct.
And it shows up on our,
It's taken a collection.
What's it
And the disbursement is done to the unit at each, just the same as it is to all other tax units, whether it's, the only difference is the disbursement is done through the general fund of the township because it comes out of the 401. It gets debited right back out of the 401 fund, which is your property tax collection fees. That's where it goes into, and that's where it comes right back out of.
where does it show up in terms of revenue for the general fund then?
In the 401 fund.
6-1, so it's in.
Oh, in the property tax fund?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so all those in favor of the library fund as written, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Page 33 is another police department auto theft prevention, anticipating inspection fees of vehicles in the amount of $2,500 and expecting a expenditure of $10,000. Steve, you may have to help me with this one. I'm not familiar with this one.
I'm sorry, where are you at?
I'm on auto theft prevention.
Mhm.
They're expecting $2,500 in inspection fees, and then the expenditure of $10,000. Do they have a line that they draw from in that? I'm unfamiliar with this one.
I don't know. I'd have to look to see what the actual fund balance is.
Okay.
If they have a fund balance, or it could be they're looking to appropriate money out of the fund
Okay.
balance. I haven't looked at it.
I haven't either, and I'm sorry that I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm not as familiar with this one.
You do what you're doing. I take it that the chief did
The
this.
chief did this one, yep.
I gotta believe that he did it. But everything. Did he go through all?
I'll ask some questions, because this is
Wanna
one I'm
hang on
not,
to this until
yeah,
you-
I'll hang on to this one, because I'm not as familiar with this one.
Hopefully it's not a keystroke there.
So page 34 is capital projects. If the board chooses to fund a capital improvement project, it will come in under here, operating transfers in. This is where in 2019, we purchased the Westwasser property that added to the Westwasser Park. And then in 2021, we paid the property taxes out of there as well. At this time, I have this budgeted at 0, but the board can determine if they're gonna fund projects. This is where they would be funded out of. Go ahead.
How would you know how much the cost is for projects, even though we've seen,
You would tell me which one you wanted to fund, and
oh, all right.
you would say, we want to,
Can we skip this one then until we have time to look at it?
yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Can we change one thing here? In 2021, just to make clarification here, in 2021, you didn't purchase any Westwasser property.
No, I said we paid the taxes.
We paid the tax.
Paid the taxes. I said in 19, we
You
purchased the
didn't
property.
purchase any Westwasser.
I'm sorry. We purchased the property to add to the Westwasser Park. I
But
apologize.
I would like that.
Okay.
The people could take and hear
No.
this, it's on the thing.
Not you.
Thank
We added to Westwasser Park.
you.
So, yes, we can hold on this one.
Can I
Yeah.
ask some questions first?
You certainly can, Brian.
Why would we put the taxes in land acquisition?
Because that's the way the auditors wanted us to do it, because it's total cost of the property, what the cost to take and purchase the property as part of it. It'd be no different than if you was gonna go and buy a house and if you bought a new home, the total cost of your home, if you had taxes that was delinquent, which these taxes were delinquent, you had to pay them as part of the lien that was against the house, which we had to pay them as part of the lien against the house.
But when we did the DDA land and paid those taxes, it wasn't under a land acquisition account.
Oh, no.
But the DDA budget was a different thing. The only person you had that was that was exactly right. The auditor said it was exactly right. You was offered a chance to meet with them and you refused.
Oh, Steve.
We've had this conversation.
Yes, we have. It's
You
not
refused.
correct.
5 board members met
No,
with
you
them
didn't.
auditors and you didn't want to meet
You
with
did
them.
not tell me anything about DDA.
You should know that. You're the supervisor. If you went to the meeting, you'd have known. That was where that expenditure was supposed to be legally spent from, because the supervisor was the chief operating officer of the DDA. You currently did not have a DDA board, therefore you could not take and do that. I didn't make the choice not to have a DDA board. The board didn't vote to have a DDA board, so
Okay.
I'm
All
stuck
right.
with balancing the funds of the township, and I asked them, how do you pay for this?
Yeah.
And it goes back, you can pay for it out of the supervisor's miscellaneous expense. So that's what we did. You was asked to be included in this, but you chose not to do that.
Karen, does it sound right that there would be 49,710 in fund balance in this fund?
Yes, because there was money allocated and it's been sitting, and holding in that department for some time. It's been several years.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to page 35, if everybody's comfortable. You're getting into the sewer fund. At the top of the page is the revenues. You have tap-in fees, sewer charges for services, late fees, inspection fees, interest, other revenues, special assessments, and please ignore auto theft prevention. I don't understand why BSNA keeps doing that to me, but we will have that corrected.
Karen,
Yes, sir.
do we have information back from
We do not.
our study, so we aren't going to be able to have a discussion?
I have increased, the sewer charges for services to $113.24, which is a $1 increase, I believe,
Okay. That's what
in
we
order to
were-
keep up with the previous OMBA study,
Correct.
until we receive Baker Tilly information. So I will separately be asking this board to approve a sewer increase,
Okay.
separate from this document.
Well, it's real important to do that on an annual basis.
It is.
Otherwise, if you don't, you end up charging people $10 or $20 if you give up some years, so.
Yep,
It's only $1.
I'm trying to
It's-
keep
it's
pace
real-
instead of,
Yeah,
catch
it's
up.
really important to do that.
Karen, are you doing that at the next meeting?
I'm most likely,
With the sewer bill coming up?
okay.
That's why, that's the end of the year.
Do you want to leave 35 alone? Do you want us to vote on this?
I would like you to, because that's,
Okay.
it contains an increase that I'll need to move forward at the next board meeting.
Okay.
Ryan, please.
I got a couple of questions, I'm
Sure.
sorry. The other revenue, it says return of 2021 fund balance.
So we get money back each year from SCUMA. You'll recall that we.
From
both
SCUMA's
either
fund
receive-
balance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it.
That we either receive that money back or we leave it with SCUMA, and in the past, I would say probably 6 to 8 years, we've taken the money and received it back here. So that money goes directly into the sewer fund.
And can you tell me what the special assessment, the 102,000 this year was? I'm sure you've already told me, but can you remind me?
I don't know that I can. Did we have a special assessment? Treasurer Wisswasser?
What you did there is you've taken the 2021, you've taken the 102,986.94, which is the amount of money that's gonna get special assessed and collected on the winter taxes for the, and, starting in December here, that's 102,986.94. You've got that number from Beth
Beth.
when you did the special assessments, because the special assessments, for any, this is gonna require a
Oh,
long
now I
story
understand.
here.
Okay.
For practical purposes, the sewer, that's what I was thinking about, and I go, because Brendan
I didn't think we
was
called
talking
that a
about
special assessment.
Billing
Now I
here is
understand.
coming.
Delinquent. It's
Yeah,
But-
it's delinquent.
The sewer budget, the end of the sewer budget ends, at the beginning of the third quarter, the third and fourth quarter is 2022 for the sewer budget. Because of the special assessment, it has to be turned in by September 15th.
Delinquent.
Delinquent, and then we're delinquent fees, and a lot of people choose to pay their sewer
As part of
by
the
special
property
assessment as
taxes.
part of the property taxes versus paying it quarterly. And their budget, we start, the last billing is technically, the second quarter billing is the last billing of the year. The third quarter billing, going forward, third and fourth, is the next year's billing.
I'm sorry, I always think of it as a delinquency.
It really
And
didn't
seeing
need-
it as a special
It didn't need to
assessment.
be in there, but what happens is the auditors have to take and they have to take and pencil that in there when they do the financial statements, because they have to have that number, because they have to know how much of it. It's kind of like our insurance around here. If you look, our insurance gets paid in July for our liability and everything else, and part of that is from the year before, and part of it is for the year going forward, and it's the same thing with special assessments for sewer. It's delinquent sewer that goes on the special assessment roll, it has to be turned in by the 15th of September to get ready to be on the tax roll, which is what I just here 2 weeks ago just signed, and voted for, and that's what that number represents.
I'm sorry.
And it's pretty close if you look at it. Really, from year to year, it's not in there from last year, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in there. But it's revenue.
Yes, and I think of it in day-to-day terms as the delinquent.
And here's the thing, it's revenue from this last year, from 21, but it's not gonna be collected until 22. Because it's not due technically till March 14th without penalty. And that's how that works, or February 14th, excuse me, without penalty. I'm getting my dates wrong, I'm talking too much. But
Well, thank you for helping me, because that's
You
not how I
made me
think of
think
it.
about it, I was stuttering there for a minute, talking about you have a new sewer building going out. And I was thinking whether that was, when you want to renew the dollar amount for 2022, which is what we
Mhm.
agreed on years ago, we were gonna, because it didn't get done for 9 years.
Mhm.
Until 2000, whatever it was, 16 or whatever, we come back here.
Yeah.
Oh, they never raised it for 9 years, and that's what Joe's referring to, because some people just seen a big increase because they didn't take care of it, and they should do that, it's a living document, it needs to be done every year. But the new sewer building will go out in December,
For January, February,
for
March.
January, February, March, and you're right, that was a brain teaser, you had my mind working overtime here, and that will be a new, if you're gonna change it, if you're gonna amend it, or change it, that will be your first bill of the year, yes.
Yeah. So we mail it out by December 15th, and it's due January 15th.
So we didn't budget for that in the next year because it shows up in the sewer charges. Is that fair to say?
And you don't know what's
It's
delinquent until the last
It's
quarter.
delinquent sewer charges, that's correct.
So that's why it's about $100,000 more than this past year.
No, it just didn't get done last year. It didn't need to be in there this year, that's a special assessment.
But when you add the sewer charges this year plus the special assessment, it almost equals the sewer charges we budgeted for next year.
Yep,
I'm adding that? Okay, thanks.
it'll be revenue from this year, but I'll tell you exactly what's gonna happen, and it isn't the auditors, the accountants, when they come in here and do the financial statements, they'll take that number, and they'll retract that number out, and they'll actually look at it, because they'll do that in April, which will be settled with the county, so we'll know how much of that money we collected, and they'll go back and they'll mark that money back, so it's money that was unearned income, basically, it's like,
Actual.
that goes back to the actual, as it occurred.
Thank you.
Good catch, so.
Thank you for helping me with that one.
Well-
I always think of it as delinquent sewer. I don't talk in the same terms sometimes as you do for what the budget says.
The stuff is fun, you can do it every day. You don't have to read as many magazines during the
Turning to page 36, this is the operations and the treatment costs of the sewer as well. This is a continuance of the sewer fund, capital outlay, and debt service. So sewer encompasses pages 35 and 36. Ryan, please.
Is there two different sets of bonds? Is that why we have two different bond fees?
There's actually
You only have one bond
one
fee.
bond.
You have agent fees. Is that what you're referring to?
No, down here it says 159 is bond fees and 801 is also bonding fees.
What page are you on?
36.
Oh, I know where you're at. You're up here, 159 for bond discount. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That's one.
Okay. And what's the other one?
One below it.
801.
801,
Contracts from professional services?
yep,
Is that what you're talking about?
yes.
Okay, that's built in there special for this. You're gonna have, for anytime you bond for anything, you deal with this, you've done it with the roads. Anytime you bond for something, you're gonna pay a bond discount. What the bond discount is this is the difference between the actual cost and the interest for the year and how much you're paying on it for the year. That's usually, that's a number, and the easiest way to estimate that is look back at your previous bonds and see what about where you were, and that's about what that is.
So that's 159.
It's right in there pretty close, yeah, that's 159.
And then 801 is the fee we pay.
Professional services is what you're gonna pay these guys to do the actuarial, Baker Tilly and everybody else that gets involved with all but as well as Miller Canfield, who's the bond attorney, because you have to have, not only have to have actuarial people and the people who do the bond, you gotta have a bond counsel, and that's what they refer to them as, they're a bond attorney. And it'd be like Miller Canfield, who we usually use, and they'll actually do write up the language for the bond, and that's their cost. And it's a percentage of whatever the bond is. I think we figured the percentage at whatever that number works out to is somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.5–4 million.
At least.
What is that, Joe, about 10% maybe? I think for the whole thing, I guess what it is. Maybe a little over that.
Maybe a little over.
15 maybe.
Yeah.
But that's what that is.
Thank you, that's
And I
really
just heard
helpful.
Put that in there, I'm sorry.
No, that
And I heard,
makes
well, I know
sense.
You need to put that in there if you're gonna bond for sewer. And actually, you're gonna
Which is
see
great
the same
because
thing,
we're
you'll have to
preparing for-
amend your, if you do a bond for roads, you'll have to do the same thing, you'll have to amend your thing for that, the same way. I'm guessing if they'll wanna set up a special revenue fund to do that, so we'll have to get to that, we'll jump that bridge and get there.
One more question, Karen.
Go ahead, please.
Will you help me understand the 55,000 going to the general fund?
So those are administrative fees
Okay.
that fund pays to our staff for doing the billing and collecting.
Offset the cost of the staff.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Additional questions about the sewer fund? I would love you to, because that will help me bring that other one back to you. So go ahead, Ryan. Another
Do you know,
question?
does it break even, or is there there's too many lines for me to have done that in my
There's
head?
actually there's a fund balance, but we try to help it break even by year or return money. We're getting,
It's not listed, so we don't.
It's listed in your audit.
I know, this is gonna say, because I
Yep.
was.
This isn't a special revenue fund, this is this fund here, the sewer fund and the water fund would be what you would refer to as an enterprise fund. So it's a separate enterprise from what the rest of the funds are. In other words, it's a funds a special fund by itself is able to borrow money and bonds or money and spend money and so on and so forth.
and make them.
It's intended to make money, it's intended to stabilize
It looks like you're budgeting for 107,000 in the black. Does that sound right?
Added the fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
All those in favor of the sewer enterprise fund as written, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving to page 37, is the water fund. So similarly, and this is one I will, if you have questions, I will call on Treasurer Westwasser as well, because this is one I am completely not familiar with. And I'm still learning much to,
Would you like me to take it?
go, yes, please, if you will, I would love for you to take it.
Back years ago, in 1986, we sold our water fund, our water system to the Lansing Board of Water and Light. We retained in our contractual agreement we have with them, to take and retain, sold all of our water wells and system, the complete system to them. And in return, we was gonna retain for tap fee for everybody that builds a new house that hooks to the water system in Bath Township. Board of Water and Light pays us $200 per fee, per tap. So over the years, you take and it builds up. Obviously, we do have a fund balance in that thing. I'm not familiar with exactly how much it is, but I know we do have CDs bought for the water fund specifically, because it's quite a bit of money. But you collect $200 per year, and it's an estimate of how many taps you get. People are gonna buy houses and build houses on the water fund. Down below, and that's the 2022 budget, she's accounted for $3,400 for water fees, tap fees, $200 per unit. She's accounted for $40 for interest for the year. There's not a lot of interest to be made this day and age, especially on a little bit of money they have, 100,000 or so, 150,000, I guess it is. Down at the very bottom, appropriations, you look at operations, and you look down at the bottom, as the only expense you see an expense for miscellaneous for $500. Each year, we contribute to the Mid-Michigan Rural Water Association, which is a fund that takes and works for the benefit of municipalities and water and whatnot. We started redoing that back in about 16 or so. We started, they went for a long time, they never took and did that. The guy by the name of Clyde Dugan, who lives in Bath Township, used to be the president of that. He used to be the director of operations, the Lansing Board of Water and Light Water Division. He lives in Bath. He's still on that board. He still represents us on that board and represents the water people last I knew, at least it was last year.
I think he's still.
And that's what that $500 is for the protection of our interest in the water business.
Thank you.
Karen?
I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
was writing. Go ahead, Ryan.
Did we stop calling the sewer water admin charges and start calling it transfers to general fund last year?
Yeah. It says admin, water admin fee.
Yeah, and last year we had it at 0, but then we added general fund.
There's a 59 right in the middle, see 591-558-992 for $10,000.
That, you missed that this year, actually. Good thing you brought that up, Ryan.
I missed something.
Actually, what you did in 2021 is we transferred from the water fund to the general fund, $10,000 for administration fees, the same thing as what we do for the sewer because of the paperwork and everything we go through. Board of Water and Lights in here on a daily basis, and we turn in stuff and pick up permits. We also have all the permitting process that we handle for the building and zoning for the water when somebody comes in to build something else, so we charge a fee. And we did this, I'm gonna be honest with you, Dan and I sat down and did this back in 20 probably, and we did it and started in 21, but because of the fact that the general fund revenues was a little tight, things was a little bit tight and it was costing more money to take, and the government was growing, and so we looked at ways, and actually our auditors and our accountants at the time told us that said, hey, you're missing the boat here, you should be collecting some admin fees for the general fund, because you don't have any water employees, the general staff is who does this, so that's why we did that. That's a good,
Should I be doing
good
that?
catch. We need to take and make a transfer to the general fund for $10,000
Okay, I will fix that.
for 22.
Yeah.
I should have caught
So
that.
that-
Is that another thing you'll do on Wednesday then? Is that part of the
We
suite?
do that quarterly.
Okay.
We look at it. But yeah, if we might, if we get everything done Wednesday, if that's hard to say, but yeah,
Okay.
we'll identify it. What everything we don't do is, it gets put in, I have a set of notes and they have a set of notes. We get it done. This year we've been, I'm gonna be honest with you, this year they've been relying on me to do a lot of stuff because we've been in between people with members. Because of the work, there just isn't any way to do anything anymore. And they've had trouble, they've had people go. We had a very good guy here for a long time, for what, a year or two? And he took a job, smart man, taught me a lot. He took a job as, he used to be the finance director and city treasurer of Mason, and he worked for them. And then when they got absorbed by Maynard, it was Abraham Gaffney, and then it was whatever they were in between there and whatever. He went to work, he went with them, but he came to work here, and he went to Maynard. He didn't really like Maynard, signed their big outfit. And he had a job, chance to go back to work for City of Charlotte as finance director and Charter City treasurer, and he went there. So we've been without this guy for quite a while, and we've had a couple of them. We had another one, we had a lady came one time, and she was really did a good job, and thought everything was off to a good start. And the next month she quit and took a job somewhere else. And so then I've been doing it all summer, and they've been helping me out a little bit here and there. Dane has been coming in here, he's our accountant for Maynard. And now they have a new person named Adam, who's been here once, and he's dying to get back in here Wednesday and do some more work, but Dane's still training him somewhat.
I think I can give you some context. I play kickball against the Maynard team, so when we clobber them, they're so embarrassed they have to find new jobs.
Stop doing that.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you guys are beating up on them. They really enjoyed the guy, the people they've had here. I've learned a lot from the one guy, especially like I say, went to work for the city of Charlotte, was a very sharp individual. And I get along great with Aaron Stevens. He's our lead guy, though. He's not the grunt that's in the field doing work, but he's my guy. I call up on the phone and I say, hey, what about this? And we talk frequently and we get a lot done. But
You'll mind me when I talk.
you're paying a lot of money for them, but if you look what it would cost you to pay somebody's caliber or what it is for like a finance director for a city, because that's what we're close to here and whatnot, you'd be paying them about twice what you pay me for a salary.
Yeah.
So you're getting a pretty good value for what you're getting.
I see it, Marie.
I know you do.
I saw you. We're waiting. Don't lose it.
The more he talks, the more. When you're talking about all these people that assist with this water issue, but we don't have a staff. So who's Adam and who's?
They're on
Well,
our,
that's a different scenario.
they're part of our accounting
They're
team.
part
Okay,
of, they're
right.
part of,
They're part
that's
of our
part of your
accounting
main,
team.
because there are some people you
That's,
pay.
okay.
But really, our front
$2,000
office staff is the one that's doing the
$2,000
work.
Well, that's what I,
Yeah.
The
that's
front
what I,
office, the front office
Yes.
staff is who you take and spend that $10,000 with, and that could be anything from the wages offsets the wages. That's just a generality that offsets the wages of the front office staff, of the clerk's department, the treasurer's department. They could even include the planning, and they could even include the assessing people. I mean, that's how wide a range, and of course, you also gotta remember, we have one other employee here, a couple other employees that are fairly expensive as well, and that's the superintendent and deputy superintendent, if you include the offset the cost of their salaries too. And your salary. If you go to any meetings or anything, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, that's what it is, or anybody on this board.
so that still lends me to the issue, so it's an accounting team that does the work, obviously, well, it's not, because our staff, I'm always.
Yeah, Board of Water and Light, they come in and they drop things off. They drop requests for water.
Where do we pay, is that in the contractual and services?
No, this just gets transferred to the general fund. This just puts money into the general
This
fund.
just puts money in the general
But
fund.
who
to
pays them?
Pay for the staff.
Right, but those that are making
This,
those
this ten,
decisions.
this $10,000 a year comes out of water fund balance.
Yes, which wasn't moved over to 2022.
Right.
Right.
Okay. But I'm still thinking,
It just
So
goes into
that's
revenue,
above
the
and
revenue
beyond.
gets distributed to everything.
so there isn't really any line item that says,
It goes
this is
into
the
the law.
contractual agreement that we have for
This
the water.
revenue that comes in, if you look on the first page of your budget,
Right.
it shows up on the first page of your budget.
Okay.
Revenue coming in, contractual professional.
So what's going
services.
out? Who's paying for them?
It's coming out of the water fund.
Okay.
We take money out of the water fund to cover the costs that we pay out of the general fund.
Where's, oh, no, I understand.
It's
So where's,
101-000-618, administrative charges water.
so that's what I'm, okay, administrative charges.
And she's actually budgeted for it, so you need to change this, because you need to look at this. Because you budgeted for it for $6,000, which is more appropriate. And you need to make that $6,000 in your appropriations.
So
That's
not
all you
10,
did,
6.
yeah, you just missed that one number, is all you did.
Okay.
And that would go under the 6, now say that again?
That comes into the general fund under 618.
Under, okay.
But it comes out of the water fund
And so
on the page.
that's the 10,000 that you're
It's
talking
not,
about?
It's not
not
gonna be
be
10, it's
10,000,
gonna be 6.
6,000.
Right, that's,
You got
So
it, she
it-
just didn't put it in there.
so 2022 would be 6,000 as
Yep.
opposed to, okay, gotcha.
And if you look back, I think it shows that was more in line with what it was.
We reduced some of those over.
Well, we've had 0, so we're not transferring.
We moved them up and down a little bit. Yeah, you are, it'll be a transfer.
Okay, the 6,000 will be the transfer to general fund.
And to answer Ryan's
Okay.
thing, yes, that gets done on
End of the year.
end of the year.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
So,
I have a question.
Mr. Benson.
This $200 tap fee, how long has it been $200?
As long as it was agreed upon in a contract when we sold the water
In
fund, water
86?
system.
So we don't-
I
we don't-
made a mistake there, that
I was
part
gonna
that's
say
down, it was
96.
96,
96,
not
not,
86.
because I thought, man, that's a long.
I'm not gonna hear that.
Okay. Well, I'm only going by what you said, so,
So we really don't, that $200 is controlled by the contract then?
It's in the agreement.
It's in the agreement.
What the agreement is.
Okay.
to perpetuity, in other words, it's forever,
Yeah, forever.
okay?
Okay.
Okay,
That would answer my question.
so all those in favor of approving the water fund with a $6,000 transfer to the
Okay.
general fund, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Well, we say that's 6,000.
Yeah.
You want me to explain that? How-
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You guys thought mistake.
Huh? Oh, Ryan, I'm sorry, I didn't see your.
I'm sorry, just a clarification, the 101,616 admin fees library, is that where the 1% is?
There's, well, there's two separate 1%. You get 1% as a result of collecting taxes, and then you get the 1%, the additional 1%, and that's where that 1%
So you actually
is.
get 2%.
So it's actually a total of 2.
Yep.
So one is in the property taxes, one
Yes,
is in
and
the,
one is in the other, yes.
okay.
One will be 407, part of the 407 fees, and the other one will be president.
So to my earlier question, the 1% is going up. So there's gotta be,
311,000, yeah.
it's gotta be going up.
Yeah, so it's 311, and then it's,
It went up because you got more taxes.
Taxes.
Right, but we have it in the budget as going down, is what I'm trying to say. That this year, for some reason, the collection is going to be less, even though 1% of that collection is actually more.
We'll have to take and address that.
I'll have to look at the paperwork I've given.
Thanks.
Yep. I can send that to you too if you'd like to see it.
No, I trust you, I just,
No, I just-
it was like another piece of evidence that something was amiss there.
Okay. Last but not least is street lighting. Estimated revenues, interest and special assessments, 85,000. And then the payment out for the utilities, $85,000 as well.
So I have a question.
Sir?
With the addition of some of our new sidewalks that we're going to put into place here in the coming years, they're not lit yet, so would that money come out of this budget? The light bills?
So when we decide that, it's my understanding those will probably come back to us as amendments to our streetlight districts. They'll probably add to those,
The districts.
and then we will be able to account for them.
And so that's how we'll fund them then. All right.
But we'll probably at that time have to have some public hearings and,
Oh, I'm sure we will.
yes.
When you're talking about the 85,000 for your special assessment, is that including the lights that don't work, or is that including just
Any light
Anyone
that's in
who's
a
on
streetlight district,
is charged whether the light works or not?
Who's looked on their taxes, it's on the parcel of land, if it falls within the however many feet it is.
Well, no, that's what I wondered.
she's
If
just
the
saying
light
if it
doesn't
doesn't work.
Has nothing to do with the light works or not, it has to do with whether or not
That's
the
what I
parcel of
wanted.
And
land.
that's why we try to educate everyone to report them if they're not working.
Right.
I just reported two this week, to staff. So as much as people can let us know that they're not working,
And as far as I know, once they change it, they're going to LED lights, which
Right.
is cheaper.
It's cheaper. But that's what I kind of was trying to figure out how that was gonna work,
I'm glad you brought that up.
because it
The,
is cheaper.
the new lights are not only cheaper,
Paper
when you
here.
read the newspaper.
Yes,
in
they
the
are
driveway, they're a lot brighter.
They are not.
Okay,
Would make the lift nice.
Actually-
So we used to-
actually,
you know?
my neighbor asked in our, we share a driveway, and our neighbor asked for them to put a dampener on the back side of ours, and they did that for us.
Well, I can also tell you, if anybody calls and reports a streetlight out, they don't actually know if it's out. They just come and replace it during the day. Yeah.
So they're not checking it
Oh,
to see.
so
if
They're not
it's-
checking it to see if
So
it's
they're
actually
just going by
out.
what somebody said?
Yes, and they'll come and replace it.
The damper, what is the damper? That's-
It just meant that it can't shine towards the driveway.
That's
So
what-
they
They put a
change
screen,
a screen.
Okay.
so it shines more in the street.
Excuse me.
Yeah, they-
Brian, you need water?
No, thank you. I need Dayquil.
All those that are, in favor of street lighting, if we have any changes there, say aye.
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 And opposed? Okay. The last sheet, as I believe trustee Dewens Bliss has been referring to, is the balance of revenues and expenditures.
No, what I was talking about was general fund only.
Oh, okay.
So this number looks a little better.
Yeah, this should be different.
I'm sorry?
Are these numbers different? They should be different.
A little different,
Yeah.
based on some of the changes that we've made here and there. So, we made it through all the pages. We have a, Mr. Rice is leaving, sorry to call you out. We have a budget special meeting scheduled for Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, not
Next-
tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you for saying that.
What
Next
time?
Tuesday,
From 4 to 7 a.m.
Yep.
And what is the date?
the 30th.
30th.
And when is it?
Tuesday the 30th.
Tuesday, the 30th, did you say?
Yes. 4 to 7.
And will you be discussing capital improvement?
That's what I'm asking, is what's their pleasure down? Because it's a matter of whether I do some updates prior to us meeting again, or if you have the list of potential projects that can be funded. I need to update also the general fund numbers that I did for trustee Dewens Bliss. I think you initially asked for it. It's the general fund expenditures. Mr. Dempsey?
Yeah, you need to update this, so we're ready to go to hearings.
Okay.
We have to get ready.
And so then you can discuss
We'll get a new one of these.
projects, roads, yep.
Well, something that would be helpful to me is to understand, it doesn't have to be tonight since we're at the end here, but what every board member's appetite is to dip into the fund balance. Is it this number that we have today, which is almost $1 million? Is it something more? Is it something less? Because if we add the piece about the roads, if we had Drumheller or anything else from this list, it's just gonna push us further and further into the red. But maybe that doesn't matter, so it would be helpful to know where board members are in that sense.
I think what I'm hearing from the board is we need to explore other revenue sources on how we might fund these roads because the numbers are so big. And we need to take a look at what might be available to us in the future. We may be able to do some, well, I call it borrowing, but we may be able to finance them at a lesser cost. So I think that's going to answer itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think we'll be adding, my feeling is at this moment, I don't think we'll be adding to the road budget at this time.
So even without adding, we're at about 931,000 in the red. So if we add any of the projects here, that also would add to that.
Correct.
Just not having done a budget with you all before, I don't know if you all are budget hawks, or if you're willing to dip into the fund balance, or if we think we might use some of our ARPA funds, or what have
I
you.
have a hard time sending Taylor out with some flyers, asking the general public to increase their taxes to pay for what we have proposed here, and I know it's almost $1 million, but we have a total almost $5.5 million in the bank, so I really don't want to raise taxes at this time with that type of fund balance available. And everything in this budget at this time tells me I need to fund this at this time. So that's just where I'm at. You can check with the other board members who weigh in with their personal opinions.
I agree with Joe. Marie? What do you
No,
think?
I don't, only because, you know that.
Well, I want to hear you say
I don't
it.
have to say it, so, I'm having a hard time, which has really been great for information. This has been probably one of the most productive for me, not for you, but for me, in understanding, how things work. I'm still really hung up on some of the major issues that have to do with it. One is the funding of the police department, which is close to my heart. Fire department also, those are issues for me. The 3% to me is high for across the board, but that's me. This is a majority rule, so whatever it is that, you already said you support it, and that's really nice, and I understand that completely. I understand that completely. There has been some true explanations for me that I probably would have voted no if in fact I had not had an understanding more of what's going on. So if that's what you're looking for, $1 million to spend it, the COVID has been a gold mine for us. It has been. So as a gold mine, I would rather see it spent for the township than I would on anything else. Government to grow? No. Government remaining the same? Yes. I am one of those terrible things that people don't understand. It's called a Democrat that's conservative when it comes to finances. But that's the way I am. That's the way I've always been with our budget, with everything at home or whatever I'm dealing with. So for me, it's a problem. I have to go home and look at it again and again and again to be able to understand exactly what's going on and where we're at. Do I think we should spend it? Oh yeah, this gold mine's only gonna be here once, and then it's gonna be gone. So I would much rather see that there's some kind of permanency, that we're doing something positive.
But to be clear, there's no COVID funds in here yet.
Yes, there are 600 and some odd thousand.
No, that's not in here.
But it's not budgeted.
No.
And we can't use that funding on most of this stuff.
That's correct. So your question of asking whether I would go into the fund balance, for me, because we are expecting it, it's been talked about repeatedly, yeah, I would go into that, if that's what you're looking for. Because it's gonna be replaced and because it's gonna be there. So,
But it's not going to be replaced, to be clear. We have to spend that out by 2024, and only in the ways that memo that Karen sent us to allows us
oh
to.
yeah.
So it won't be able to replace most of this money.
But we can look at health benefits as being the park, walking around, that's a health benefit. We can look at all kinds of things depending on how the community wants to spend it. So, and the community sits here, supposedly. That's what you were elected to do. So, here we are. Geez, I'm getting to sound like you. Or as Jason said,
No, I
I'm
don't
my
think
horse.
so.
Well, ride a horse.
You'll ride a horse. Go ahead. Everybody's looking at you like they always do.
That's not good.
You didn't say it?
Well, I know that I don't have a vote here. Just to let you in on where I think I'm headed in the next, with this budget and in the next year. I think that the roads is really, the road bonding has piqued my interest. I think they're as an alternate revenue source for repairing our roads, because we're really making some decisions right now about fixing this and not fixing this, and that's not sustainable long-term. I think that taking a look at the police and fire millage is gonna be a look that we need to take in the next year, knowing that $2.5 million is going into police and fire, and only 1.4 million is coming in under the millage. I think we need to look at that, because I know those needs, the need for new vehicles, the need for a lot of different things continues to grow. We have fire trucks that are aging at 20 years now, and those are expensive to replace. So just knowing those things. I think that benefits, though they're declining, I think we paid 1.78% this year. I think that we're approaching a moment in time where we need to take a hard look at our benefits, and we need to take a hard look at MERS and figure out some long-term solutions, whether that means, in terms of benefits, employees begin contributing to that, and then in terms of MERS, and it doesn't have to be a lot, we'll figure it out, what that looks like. I just don't want anybody to have sticker shock. It's been, even if it's $10, it would help offset the cost. So I'm not talking big and major, I'm just saying like it's time to start looking at different things. But MERS, long-term, one of the problems that we have is that MERS is 20% right now. So any employee I hire, whether it's a police officer or a new planner, 20% of their income comes right off the top and goes away to their retirement. That's great long-term, but that's not great when I'm trying to recruit employees. Especially young people want money in their checks.
Yeah.
So that's gonna put us, Bath Township, at a deficit when competing for employees. So those are all things that I think we have to look at as we go forward.
I would recommend we also look at returning some of the original value of our millage in our Charter Township millage. If we continue to have Headley rollback and we never push it back up, eventually, if we were to go back to the 5 now, it would be a big jump because it's rolled way back. If we wait any longer, it's just going to be harder and harder to get back to where we want to go. So I think another opportunity is, do we, push it back up to 4 or what? Some other number that doesn't feel as drastic to the everyday person, but helps us recapture some of that lost Headley funds. And now that we can do it, as a board, I think that makes things functionally easier, maybe a little bit more politically hard, difficult, but actually doing it is much easier now.
Are we gonna have time for public comment?
Oh, yes, that is the next, whatever it is. Are we finished?
Did you guys want to comment on what I think about fund balance?
Go ahead.
If you want to.
Was that your question, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, like, what is our personal appetites to dip into the fund balance, I guess?
believe I think our fund balance should only be, it's only gonna be as good as what the people are that care for. And each one of you care for the fund balance, as far as you have a responsibility to watch it. But I think, like I said earlier tonight, these ticket items where you're spending $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 on pieces of equipment or something is one thing, but if you're gonna start spending $1 million on roads, or $2 million, or whatever the number is, then you better do a pretty good actuarial of how much you need. And I think that you should look at alternative ways that they can finance that. For the most part, I guess that's the easiest way of putting it, fund it. I think bonding is something to look at. Better than millage, just as I said before, I'm not in favor of a road millage because that puts more taxes on the public. And you are in a good spot here, and I'm in favor of retaining a significant amount of your fund balance, and even if it means the fact that maybe you have to take a few bucks out of it every year to help pay a bond payment or a increase somewhere else down the road and pay for those road repairs on time. But you need to have the numbers of what your exact numbers are from the road commission and the road committee as far as what they need and what years they need it, because you need to go out and bond for this stuff on per year basis, so that you have, if you want to spend $700,000 a year for the next 5 years, then that's what you should bond for. I'm just giving that as an example, because that's what you said tonight, $726,000. So if you want to spend that every year, then that's what you need to bond for. And if you want to include your yearly service fees, your $200,000 in that, and then include that in it. If you want to pay for that separately, then pay for it separately. That can be done. That's just plain common sense there. You just look at it, and you have somebody doing actuarial on it, and you'll know you get good information. You'll have a good result. You're in a position that most people never in this room will never be in. Maybe Mr. Benzie here, but you're never gonna be in, because I mean you get to do something that's actually good for people and it's good for the community, and that's the thing you need to think about. There's a lot of communities that like to be in our shoes, and we need to appreciate that. We need to respect the people by it. But that's my thought on fund balance. You need to retain it, so you got to continue your strength and your growth. And have it there to be able to do what you need to be done, and continue to let the community grow. It's too late to stop the growth, folks. The growth is here, and it's now. You need to protect the quality of life for the working professionals that live here, and the people who is retired here or anything. I mean, that's what you need. You need to provide the amenities you want to have. A small and simple community, but a very well-off community. That's my opinion of the fund balance.
That's helpful. Thank you.
It's enjoyable to come to work every day and deal with that. There's a lot of work here, but it's enjoyable to come to work every day and look around and see what we can do. We have many other things that we need to talk about, that we're going to talk about between now and even after we get done with this budget. We'll have to come back and look at things. You have the DDA money. You need to make commitments to them to what we said we would do, and we need to take commitments to the district and do things there. And that stuff can all be accomplished here after we get done with this base budget. I think you need to fund your base budget as you got it written. You get it done. If you look at the $1 million, $900-some thousand you got there, 450 of that's left over from last year's budget that you didn't use. So now you take that away, you're down to about 500,000. Last year, I think we took, how much out of the fund balance did we take last year, Karen? Was it 225,000, $250,000, something like that?
I think, yeah.
And we took out from the 19 budget and carried it forward. And if you think about it, you spend money when you're making money, and you don't spend any money when you're not making money. You can go a couple different ways. Plus, you have your American Rescue money that's in the bank. It's not on the books yet, but it's in the bank. It's on the books in the sense that the state has a copy from Sigma of what we've gotten. But it's not the general ledger, however it will be by Wednesday. So you'll have that money, you're gonna have to figure out what you're gonna do with as well. And I'm thoroughly convinced that if you do something with roads, now's the time to do it. I know it's risky, you guys are worried about things, but
Mr. Benzie?
guy's a developer down the road here, told me a long time ago when I learned it, and did a lot of things, learned a lot from that gentleman. You don't make anything if you don't take a chance. And the township won't get anything here if we don't take a little chance here and do some things with it. It ain't like we're broke. And that's the thing, you need to take a little bit of chance. You can't be afraid to take a chance in life. That's my thought.
Thank you very much.
I'm done now.
Mr. Benzie, were you looking to say? Sorry, I saw him.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here, because this
Yeah.
addresses Ryan's question. How much money do you think we're gonna put back in the general fund out of this year's budget? Yes, they're not, these are soft numbers.
500.
That's what I thought. Ryan, 500 we didn't spend this year. Remember how we talked about we
Mhm.
didn't spend stuff? So the number that you're looking at can be significantly less. Okay? That's, at least that's the way I'm looking at it. Based
Yeah.
on past experience.
Right. I mean, my concern is we can't do this again next year and the year after that because we'll run out of fund balance eventually. And there's not, I know there's a few things in here that are bigger ticket items, but really it's not anything other than the operations of our township on a day-to-day basis. And if our operations on a day-to-day basis cost $1 million more than we're bringing in, one of these other funding pieces has got to come in or we'll be through that fund balance in 4 years.
Well, I think as Treasurer Wishwasher said, we're gonna have to look at all our options here.
Yeah, we just got to do it though.
Yeah,
The boards have been looking at these options for, 20 years and
We have to look at our options.
You can bond for the money for the roads or borrow money for the roads, or you can take and ask for the voters to take and ask for an increase in the police and public safety fund money, or you can take and pay for the roads and hope that you get an increase in your public safety money and not be any farther, you'd be in the same shape. And to me, it's a no-brainer.
I mean, that seems to that's the conversation, right? We need to see what are the possibilities. Do we mix and match them? Do we pick one of them?
Ticket items right there, that's what's going to shape the nest here, because that's what it is. And there'll be people that don't agree with you in the community, I mean, that's pretty simple. But I mean, they're not here every day looking at the numbers, they're not here every day looking at everything that's going on. Go to the grocery store today. I don't like going to the grocery store, but go to the grocery store and look and see what it costs today to go to the grocery store. Look at these families that go pushing through the thing in the grocery store with a cart, and they got their cart all beat up. How do they pay for that? You know what I'm saying? And you go to, for God's sakes, you go to gas and get some gas at the gas station, and it's $3.50 a gallon.
As my 15-year-old daughter asked me yesterday, don't you have a credit card for that, Dad?
I bought $3,000 worth of off-road fuel today, and I paid for it for my farm machinery. And that'll last me, take me to the end of the harvest here. I'm getting down to the end. That didn't buy me 1,000 gallons of fuel.
Yeah.
But you probably have a cow and a pig in your freezer.
No.
Deer.
Deer.
There you go.
I do have a
Okay.
deer.
Well put.
So Steve, do you see this revenue conversation? Do you lead that conversation? Is that an operations? Karen leads that? Is it supervised? Who takes us through this conversation over the next year?
Right here, 7 people on this board.
All of us.
Exactly.
Because I'm just not I'm not a fan of budget and finance committee.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking, we need someone to move us forward. If we say it's on all of us, it'll not
It's
happen.
all the colleagues that sitting here at the table's responsibility that they can support it, to hear it out. Whether or not you agree with it or you don't, you still need to support it and hear it out. You still might want to vote no on it. But it's everybody's job here to do that. It isn't.
I guess the question I'm asking is who's responsible for getting the information to us that would help us to get that conversation going?
Karen and
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, that,
That's
I might be
fine.
being arrogant there, but I mean, that's what it is.
No, I don't want it to be me, so that sounds great.
You know, in most charter townships are run a little bit differently than what this one is.
Yes, they are.
And there's a board member in each one of them that takes the role of it and does a lot of this stuff. But, the treasurer's not always the one that does that. And I grew with this stuff we have here, and I came with it, and it was easy for me to slide back in here and pick up and look at what was needed to be fixed, and we fixed what we needed to do. We needed to do what we did. But we, in a sense too, we've also had a couple other policy people since I've been here. You know, we had Dan, and we was very fortunate. We got Karen, and she's doing great for what time she spent here. And I mean, it's you just can't be afraid of it. But somebody's got to bring it to the table. That's what I tried to do the other night. I get nervous. I got good. Mr. Benzie says we have a lot of horsepower, which we do, and so we got capability to make good decisions. I mean, and that's what it comes down to. It's not rocket science. It really isn't.
All right, are there any other questions or answers or discussion? If not, we'll move on. Is there anything else, guys? Okay, I guess everyone's all set. So now we'll do number 7, which is our public statement, number 2. And we're 40 minutes beyond what we were gonna do, so.
Sorry, from sitting there. Ray Kotke, Park Lake Road, Park Lake. Couple of things here. Again, I'm gonna hit you on the CIP. I want to ask a question first. So December 6th, I see, has been the scheduled public hearing. Is that correct, Karen?
Yes, for the,
Correct.
Okay, so you will not have any Board of Trustees meeting minutia?
30th.
Okay, so you're gonna do the meeting on the 30th then? Okay,
That's not what he's asking. He's asking, is the Board of Trustees meeting as a board, not in a work session,
Correct.
but as a board?
So they will meet as a board.
okay,
And then they will go through, and when they get to that item, they will go to a committee of the whole
for the public hearing?
for the public hearing.
Oh, so you are going to have the regular Board of
Yes,
Trustees
you have
scheduled
to
meeting
have
on December
a
6th?
regular board
Okay,
meeting.
that was my question.
Yes.
The November 30th is the last work
It's the
session.
last work session.
Correct,
So,
Taylor.
Special meeting, I'm sorry.
The special meeting, excuse me. And that's 4 to 6 p.m. on
Yeah.
Tuesday, the November 30th. Okay. So, I had asked, I think 2 meetings ago, about having the opportunity to have 10, 15 minutes on the agenda for the Park Lake Trail. And I didn't hear anything, so.
Well, I waited because he was gone last time.
Exactly, and that was why I also waited. So can I say then that will be on December 6th? You want to pencil it in on November 30th? I know you guys have been spending a lot of time here, but I think to me, it's really important, and I think to a lot of others it is also.
I will get with you and we'll schedule that
Okay, good.
for one or the other.
I know everybody's tired, so, but this is important. Another thing is, Karen, that you had asked me to give you that parcel information.
Yep, I have that.
That's a carpe diem kind of thing. We're going to call it the Zarkowski lot, because that's the trust that owns it, Zarkowski. That's the one behind Joe Benzie's domicile.
Want to spell that?
Yeah, it's Zarkowski. And Ira was the individual that started it, but his son has now taken it over. And that is only about 15% over SEV. That's what they've offered the price to us for at the present tax. And to me, that's one heck of a bargain. Uh-oh. So, if we are fortunate enough for you to grant us money for the CIP for the Park Lake Trail, I'm rounding that off to about $45,000. And if we were fortunate enough for you to pick up that Zarkowski lot, that would give us an opportunity by April of this year to apply for a DNR trust fund grant of $300,000. And that would, for all practical purposes, make one very nice nature preserve and non-motorized trail. And how many RFQs would you say is what is your usual standard for that? Say, if we want to get RFQs for the parking lot budget, or, excuse me,
Well, normally we would send out to, we would identify the people that we would wanna see, that we would wanna do business with.
the
So we
vendors.
would send out to contractors that we would wanna work with.
okay, that was, I don't know what that process is, so.
Yep.
And one thing I had heard tonight, that the Parks and Rec Committee had lack of performance over the last half a decade. And I agree with that. And Ryan, he and I both served at the same time, and I think that is a direct correlation. When you're on the board, and I've said this before, it's just inaction from previous board of trustees. When you give them, the committees are there to give advice to you people, the board of trustees, not you, but the previous committees. And when there is no inaction, you just kind of get disenchanted, you know. You have to get thrown a bone every once in a while, or else what's the point? Especially when, for all practical purposes, you're a volunteer. And the last thing is the CIP for the Park Lake Trail. Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else for public statements too? Okay, seeing none.
I got a pizza waiting for me.
Board member comments? Joe?
I'm good.
Good night.
Thank you for sitting it out. Greatly, greatly appreciate the audience, to say the least.
I think it's important.
It is important.
Thanks for coming.
I'm good.
I feel like we made some great progress today. Thanks.
All right, we're going to vote for an adjournment.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second
Go
it.
ahead. Who's going to second? Al, okay.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Sorry, I forgot what I was doing.
Yes.
Nobody said no?
All right, for every second.
Karen,
Yes, sir.
you got 1 second?
Yes, I do.
Can I have the second?
Yes, you can. Yes, 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 yes.
Come right over and we'll put you between us.